This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
I'm going to press the record button.
So here we go.
This is what you can look forward to on episode 155 of Skywalking Through Neverland.
Yeah.
There's so many ways you can get into fandom. It's amazing.
I would choose a lightsaber just because I'd be afraid if I had a wand, I would just keep misusing it.
Well, it's kind of like when Kanan is saying, you know, once people know that you have this, you will be challenged. People are going to want to fight you.
And this is what I want to talk about. This is what I'm passionate about. So I just started making videos about it.
Don't tell anyone it was a Star Trek website.
We should mention that we have a Skywalker that works on animating this show.
Yeah, she's got legions of fans everywhere except for George Lucas and Alec Guinness.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Hello, Skywalkers.
Listen!
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
Wow. Oh, what?
You are skywalking through Neverland.
Hey, Skywalkers! Welcome to Skywalking Through Neverland! We are the fun-filled Star Wars and Disney podcast that bring you entertaining stories from the creators and fans. And big thanks and a giant Wookiee hug to our family of Skywalkers who listen to the show every week. They're watching on Periscope and Facebook Live right now. They post in our Facebook groups and share the positivity about our adventure through fandom. I am Richard Woloski, your tour guide through fandom. And now, everyone, please say hello to my sweetie wife, Sarah, who's been very, very busy preparing our podcast stage Celebration Orlando application. How's that going?
Oh my goodness. It is going very well. And I kind of like the questions they have this time for the podcast stage.
How are they different from last year?
Last time, what are you contributing to the fandom community?
Oh,
I know, which is exciting.
Softball.
I know. So that one was exciting. And then also they want to know about how many listeners you have and when you first started, which now that September 2013 date is sounding a lot farther away. Like we're very well established.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So we're hoping for the best, and I
Yes.
can't wait. You know, but then again, we're going to be doing our podcast roundtable afterwards, having some meetups, but it's always fun to do that stage show and get a whole stage and a room to yourself.
It's so exciting. And I do want to make an announcement that we are official sponsors of Star Wars Celebration Orlando. So if you head to StarWarsCelebration.com and look at the sponsors page, we're actually right there.
Nice. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Last time, that really helped us out with the downloads.
It did. Yeah. So we are proud to be sponsors of Star Wars Celebration Orlando, and we look forward to seeing everyone there.
And speaking of downloads, our last episode we did last week, the classic Marvel Star Wars comics, is just going through the roof.
Yay!
And we're so glad that you Skywalkers are so on board with this, because
It's a little niche-y, but we do try to describe the panels and things, so even if you don't have that comic right in front of you, it is an interesting listen, because also Randy Martinez, he has a lot of knowledge about art and how comics were made back then in the 70s, and he describes a whole bunch of interesting experiences.
And these stories are really fun, and we try to, for those of you who have not listened to the episodes yet, we try to retcon these classic Marvel Star Wars comics into today's canon. And wow, last week was a doozy.
It is the great... What is it? The
Great
Star Destroyer
debate
of 2017.
Yeah, in fact, it got so heavy-handed, we had to get Pablo Hidalgo into the mix.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It was funny. Ooh.
The classic Marvel episodes are frequently hilarious.
Yes, they are. Oh.
Says someone who, I didn't see, sorry.
Oh.
But I'm glad you guys are liking those episodes. They're so much fun to do.
Yes.
And every now and then, we see something or see a bit of dialogue, and it's like, wait a minute, that's very close to what we heard in The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the producers and directors and writers and crew on The Force Awakens and Rogue One, they were very big Star Wars fans back in the day. So I'm thinking, I know if I was making a Star Wars film today, of course I would be using some of that classic Marvel Star Wars comics lore and characters and situations. 'Cause it's right there for the taking.
Yeah.
So love the shows, and I'm so happy that you Skywalkers are on board with that one as well.
Definitely.
All right, with that, let's say that we are recording this from Long Beach, California on February the 7th, 2017. Now, I know, Sarah, you are prepared for this next question. What time is it?
And you know what? I'm totally not prepared.
Every
week.
Every time.
Where's Miss Minnie Mouse?
It's even right there in the notes.
Yes, it's a Minnie Mouse.
It's 10:58. Good morning.
And that is Pacific Standard Time, Minnie. So thank you for that update.
Yes.
Now, we've been asked several times about how to get more involved with the Star Wars fan community, and that sounded like such a great, informative discussion. So we called out to our friends Mark Newbold from JediNews UK and from the ForceCenter Podcast, Jennifer Landa,
who also has her own YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
And we wanted their expert opinions on this episode since they have such a rich history of fan community between them.
So we called on them and said, hey, we want you two to be in on this discussion. And boy, they had some really great answers, great advice, and some do's and don'ts about getting into the fan community, which is going to be so much fun. I had a lot of fun doing that one.
Definitely. Now, speaking of experts, we also invited Teresa Delgado, my Fangirls Going Rogue co-host, to discuss the similarities between the Darksaber that we spoke of on our last episode and wands from Harry Potter. So, if for some reason you have been waiting to jump into the Harry Potterverse, you may want to come back to this one since there will be spoilers, since wand lore kind of happens at the last 2 books of the Harry Potter universe. So just so you know.
And we also have shout-outs, a Skywalker of the Week, many things that we want to share.
Definitely.
But first, let's play another round of the foreign dub contest.
Okay.
And I racked my brains last night trying to think of another name for this.
It works.
Well, foreign dub contest was just supposed to be like a placeholder until I thought of another idea, another name.
Okay.
And
it's stuck.
So if anyone has any ideas for what we can name the foreign dub contest, please.
Let us know.
I even went onto the thesaurus page on the internet trying to find different names for this, but yeah.
Okay,
didn't work out. This is where the Skywalker step in.
Definitely. So let's go over this premise again.
Okay.
Because it's been a little while.
So, we're going to play a scene from a foreign dub of a Star Wars or a Disney film, and you have to guess the name of the film, scene, and if you can, the language.
So, listen closely.
Vad tycker han jag ser ut som? En åsna? Gör ju.
If you know what it is, tweet at us.
At Skywalking Pod.
And the first one to guess the film, the scene, and the language wins.
Yes.
So once again, you can't just give us the film, can't just give us the scene, and hardly ever do you give us the language, but all 3. And if you are the winner, feel free to use that as a conversation piece, a college resume builder, or you can use it on a job application, okay?
And you know what they win?
The right to say, hey, I figured it out.
They win respect.
Yes, they do.
From us.
Spect.
Now, Patty Hammond says, what about Lost in Translation? That's cute.
Yeah, that is
found
good.
In translation.
Can we do something more of a Star Wars Disney slant, though?
Yeah, we need to. Okay.
That's the big hurdle right there. I was trying to give it more of a slant, but I like your idea, so please keep them coming. Someone had said skywalking through translation. I did try.
Almost there.
Yeah.
It's too many syllables.
Right. All right. Now, with that, let's move right along to things we want to share.
Things we want to share. Things we want to share. Things we want to share.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Rapunzel!
You know her name.
Think you can keep up?
Ooh! And coming to Disney Channel, one unforgettable night.
What are they?
Will change the Rapunzel you know again.
Whoa, what? Did you see the 70 feet of my father's going to kill me growing from my head?
Get ready for the new Disney Channel original movie, Tangled Before Ever After.
So what do we want to do here? Maybe a bob? Just cut it. Uh-oh. There shouldn't be any uh-ohs. Uh-oh.
Starring Rapunzel, Eugene, Pascal, Maximus, and of course,
Surprise!
the hair.
I won't ask how it grew back. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation that you'll share when you're ready.
Thank you for understanding.
Oh, come on, really?
You gotta be here for the hair-raising, can't-miss movie event, Tangled Before Ever After. The start of the new series, Tangled, coming to Disney Channel.
Okay, I got something to share. I got something to share.
Oh,
I got something to share.
Share it. What is it? What is it?
Tangled, the series. Tangled, the series. We have more news. Are you ready?
You ready?
Okay. All right. So, Tangled, the series, is following in the footsteps of other Disney Channel TV shows. And you know what that means?
Yes. But you tell us.
Okay. That means that they are going to have an original Disney Channel movie to introduce the series before the series actually debuts.
Oh, really? And when would that premiere?
Well, okay. So, the original Disney Channel movie, Tangled Before Ever After, premieres on March 10th! It's my birthday! It's my birthday! It's March 10th! It's Tangled! It's me!
Wow, what a birthday present.
I'm so excited!
It's like the Star Wars Half Marathon at Disneyland is on my birthday. You get Tangled on your birthday.
I love it! I'm so excited! So guess what we'll be doing on my birthday?
Going to see Tangled, the series, the movie.
Well, yes. Well, it'll be on our Disney Channel app or on the Disney Channel, so you can just sit right down and watch it.
But we have a screening of the movie.
Actually, well, yes.
Or am I jumping the gun?
Well, you are a little bit, but that's okay. I'll just share it now.
Spoiler.
I was so excited about this Tangled TV show, and we're not necessarily on the list of press for the Disney Channel. So I actually reached out and found the particular press people that I needed to get in contact with to get on the list for this Tangled TV show press. And we are on the list. So we made it. So we're going to be going to a press conference that will be able to screen the movie, as well as, I'm assuming, hopefully we'll get to talk with Mandy Moore and Alan Menken and Zachary Levi.
Good job. Big high five.
So I'm so excited. And we will be bringing you all we can of that, audio, whatever, and be sharing everywhere. So, yeah this has got super excited.
Great cast, too.
I know. Okay, so the Disney Channel original movie is March 10th, but the actual series debuts on March 24th. And that'll be continuing every week. That'll be a weekly show. Now, the movie will introduce the characters in the series. That's why it's kind of there. And as well as introduce why Rapunzel's hair comes back.
Oh, last we saw in the movie, it was brown. But then there was a short film.
Okay, so Tangled Ever After is the short film. Now, this series happens between the movie and that short film where they get married.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's going to flesh out the relationship between her and her parents. I mean, if you remember in the movie, her parents don't ever talk. So actually, in this series, Rapunzel's mother, Queen Ariana, is voiced by Julie Bowen.
Oh, from Modern Family.
Nice. And what's interesting is Rapunzel's father, King Frederick, is voiced by Clancy Brown.
Who we all know as Savage Opress from the Clone Wars.
But the Jedi will know that you have survived. They will be coming for us.
And Ryder Azadi from Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, so that is super exciting. And there's also some fun names in the bigger cast as well.
Supporting cast?
And the supporting cast. And you'll know some of these names from Disney and Star Wars. Darth Tuba says Hope Maximus is in it. Yes, Maximus and Pascal will be back. So exciting. So here we go. Sean Hayes, who of course from Will and Grace, he will be Pete the Guard. Peter McNichol, who's in Ghostbusters 2.
If everything you're doing is bad, I want you to know this.
He will be Nigel the Advisor. And now Disney fans will know the name Pat Carroll.
Oh, of course.
She's Ursula in The Little Mermaid. Well, I don't know who she plays. I didn't write it here. But most exciting is that Steve Bloom will be here. He's going to be one of the pub thugs, Attila Buckethead. Can't you just hear his voice as a pub thug?
Yeah.
Like I totally can.
I'm going to guess it's going to be just a slight variant from Zeb.
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, I'm so excited.
Now, are these characters we had seen in the movie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, not all of them. Like, probably Pete the Guard, perhaps. But, like, Nigel the Advisor, no, that's a new character. But the Attila was definitely a pub thug. So he was definitely in it. A lot of the pub thugs are coming back. I just brought some of these names to the fore because I knew we knew them because of our Disney Star Wars connections.
Right.
Also working on the show, on the concept art, is Claire Keane, who actually worked on Frozen and Tangled, and she painted Rapunzel's tower murals in the feature film.
Ooh.
So she's the visual development artist of the series.
I wonder if she is related to Bill Keane. I think that may be her grandfather. Okay, Periscope scope walkers and Facebook watchers, let me know if you know who Bill Keane is. What is he most famous for? Little tangential contest here.
Okay.
If you were around the 70s and early 80s, you would know this. Something that I'm very glad they never brought back to reboot.
Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He is best known for The Family Circus.
Oh, wow. Glenn Keane. That's who she's related to.
So Glenn Keane might be her father.
Yeah.
And then Bill Keane, who is the Family Circus creator, might be the grandfather.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. It's a series, the Family Circus. I'm glad they never rebooted because it was like one of those stamps in time. But you know what? That is a tangential moment.
Yes.
Now, back to Tangled.
Okay. So, just so you guys know, I'm excited to say that, composer Alan Menken is back with lyricist Glenn Slater. So he's going to be making original songs in hopefully each episode, which I'm excited about.
It'll be like the Monkees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Each episode will have a brand new song.
So exciting. Okay.
Now, what do you think about the artwork?
The art is so cute.
It is
I love
very
it.
cute.
I love the kind of more minimalistic nature. It's still beautiful, and those colors. I mean, you can't beat the purples and the yellows and all of that together. It's so bright and happy.
But do you think it's too much of a departure from what we'd seen in the movie?
Nope, I don't.
Okay.
I think a TV series has to be less cinematic.
But they got to churn out a show a week.
Yeah.
So I know it's got to be, much easier for the artist in order to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the artwork.
Okay, what do you think of it?
But the thing that stuck out to me is it too much of a departure because Tangled has got a defining look. So this is almost like Clone Wars to Rebels. Each one has got such a defining style to it. And if they were going to do let's say another series based off the Clone Wars movie, and it looked like Rebels, I think it'd be a little bit too much of a departure, so one has to define the other. So, in my opinion, I want to see how it works.
Right.
It has more of an angular look in the series.
Okay.
Whereas the movie had more rounded edges.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the movie was in 3D, 3D animation
3D, yeah, and
versus the 2D.
Yeah, right, and they had, 4 years to produce it? Whereas a TV series, they got to churn those out. So I understand.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of those things that popped in my mind when I saw the trailer.
Now, speaking of animating this awesome series, guess what?
What?
We should mention that we have a Skywalker that works on animating this show.
I love the animation.
Yeah, see? So, oh my goodness, Alexandria Leonis has mentioned that she has been working on this series. She's so excited for everyone to see it. She's been so hard at work, and she is in our Facebook group. So thank her when you get a chance.
Yeah, I'd like to have her on the show sometime if she's able to talk about it and just talk about the two different styles.
It's a little bit of red tape there. So, but if we can, possibly, we'd love to speak with you, Alexandria. So
it'll be fun to find out.
It will be, and I know I'm going to love it because I'm kind of biased.
Now, something I want to share is the Star Wars Special Edition 20th Anniversaries.
Now, for its 20th anniversary, the adventure of a lifetime returns to the big screen in a way you've never seen before.
There'll be no one to stop us this time.
Back in 1997, and this was a really big defining moment in my fandom because Star Wars was just waking up until this point. Then it woke up. Star Wars woke up at the beginning of 1997. The Star Wars Special Edition came out January 31st, followed by The Empire Strikes Back on February 21st, and then on March 14th, 1997, Return of the Jedi. These were such big, defining moments in Star Wars, because if these films didn't work, that would have been it. This was like one of those moments where Lucas was deciding, should I go on? Is this worth even going on? Because if Star Wars comes out and it makes collectively $15 million, no point in even going on. But Star Wars alone made $138 million on just a special edition release, which is phenomenal for a movie that came out 20 years ago. Everyone had already seen it on cable, on VHS, Laserdisc.
Everyone had it. And
now here was this big fan fervor coming out. And I remember waiting in line for the 8 a.m. showing at the Mann's Chinese Theater. I'm sorry, back then it was the Grauman's Mann's Chinese Theater. And I got there at about 7 o'clock. And I thought, there was going to be no line here. Line as far as the eye can see.
Whoa.
Oh, I was so happy. I was so happy there was a line, because to me, that was like, it was relief.
Okay.
That Star Wars was back in theaters and people were more accepting of it, which meant they were going to continue with Star Wars. And wow, what a great time I had at that first showing, and being so familiar with the Star Wars release that we had gotten on HBO and VHS. I knew every single effect, every single sound effect. So if anything was different, I was going to know about it. So the whole film was just me going, oh, that's different, that's different, that's different, that sounds different, that's different, that's different. But then again, so were a lot of other people, but the guy back of me kicked me.
I'm glad I wasn't sitting next to you, just because for me, that was the very first time I was able to experience Star Wars in a theater, in a full theater, with everyone like yelling and shouting, and like when the Death Star blew up, everyone cheered. It was like the most amazing thing ever. And for someone who grew up in the dark times.
Yeah. And I know people will give George a lot of flack, but you know what? If you don't want to watch the special editions, go watch the original releases, which are also now on DVD, and they have been since 2006. But for me, it was watching something very familiar that, you know, let's give it a little update. Nothing wrong with it. If you don't want to watch it, you don't watch it. But I had so much fun picking out the little differences. And here comes the Jabba the Hutt scene that we've heard so much about. And the Luke and Biggs meetup before the Death Star attack.
Right.
I always heard about it. And he was right here. And just when you thought you saw everything, every scrap of footage having to do with Star Wars, here comes this new stuff. And it was just so amazing.
Right.
Then came The Empire Strikes Back, and that was just as popular, and Return of the Jedi was just as popular, each one getting to number one at the box office. And I could go on and on and on. Or you could read my article over there at JediNews UK, which I've pretty much documented all the experiences and all of the significant changes to each of the special editions. And while doing research, I could have sworn some things were incorporated in the 1997 edition. But no, I found out they were not until the 2004 DVD or 2011 DVD.
Yeah.
So it really put everything into perspective for me.
I had a really good time reading your article because, it had been so long since I had seen the different editions, or you know, you get used to seeing a certain thing and you don't remember what came when.
Right.
So I really appreciated you breaking down those different changes.
Oh, great. So once again, head over there to JediNews UK. Speaking of Mark Newbold's site, which is JediNews UK.co.uk. Thank you very much. And I've also shared it on our Skywalking to Neverland Facebook group and over there at the Star Wars Podcast Alliance. So hopefully you'll have seen at least one of those.
Yes.
I love anniversaries, and this is the 20th anniversary, of the special editions.
You have a thing with dates.
I love dates. I love dates, especially milestones like the Star Tours 30th anniversary we just covered, and I love covering the Ewok films 30th anniversaries that we did a couple of years ago. These are milestones, and once again, this was a very defining moment in Star Wars history.
Nice.
All right.
Is that something you wanted to share?
That's something I really, really wanted to share.
Well, I have one more thing that I would like to share.
Okay.
Before we move on to our discussion of the show. And that is that I got to visit the actual Disney Vault.
Yes, you did over at the Disney Studios.
Now, you've heard of the Disney Vault, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what does that bring to mind when you hear that term?
What comes to mind? A visual of a big metal door with one of those spinning handles, and you open it up, and there's just rows of artwork and rows of models and everything that went into making all these historical Disney films.
Which is exactly what we got. Now, when I hear the term Disney Vault, what I immediately think of is how Disney markets their DVDs and Blu-rays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my first go-to. So I didn't quite understand what I was getting into until I was there. Because if you think about it, Disney has taken Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and they've taken Pinocchio, and they've taken, they've released them for a certain amount of time, and then they take them away. And they're like not available in stores unless you go to eBay and buy them for exorbitant amounts. So it's been a great marketing campaign.
Oh, sure.
And every time they release a new Blu-ray or DVD, they, add some material and in their special features and release it again. And it's a new collection. It's the Platinum Collection or the Gold Collection or the Walt Disney Signature Collection. So in this case, we got to learn exactly what they do to look at all the material that they have and release new special features even after all this time.
Wow.
I know.
Wow, just so much history. I love film history.
It was amazing. So, as part of the marketing for bringing Pinocchio out of that Disney Vault, the press was given an exclusive tour of the actual Disney Vault. So technically, it's called the Walt Disney Animation Research Library, or ARL for short, and it's in this very nondescript building in Glendale, because they don't really want to know where.
I'm sure it is.
It is, yeah, exactly. So the whole place, there's a beautiful lobby that you walk into that has historical things right there. That has a piano that's been played on by Alan Menken.
Wow.
It has these lanterns up above that were in the old Walt Disney Animation building. And the building itself has actually been used to animate some features, including Aladdin.
Right.
Because when the studio was being refurbished, they had to use that there.
And you'll never find the building because outside it says, this is not the Disney Vault. This is not the Disney Vault building.
Exactly.
Which throws everybody off.
So beyond this lobby, there are 11 vaults.
11?
11 that contain cells, story sketches, backgrounds, maquettes that the animators use to animate, puppets from Nightmare Before Christmas, and all those things they used.
Wow.
Even scraps of paper that the animators would just doodle on, and it's all there. It's all categorized, and we got to visit Vault 3, which is Walt's Vault.
Oh, there you go.
It's nicknamed Walt's Vault because it contains all of the animation that Walt was directly involved with.
It's funny that probably the trash men come by every week and say, you guys don't throw away anything. What gives? There's never any trash outside of here. Because Disney just saves everything.
They do. And so what their job there is to preserve everything. Like it's kept between a 60 and 68 degree temperature. There's no moisture in the air, anything like that. And each cell and backgrounds, they're all stacked in a certain way and in these giant flat boxes. So when I was inside Walt's Vault, which does have the big turny handles that you were talking about, I happened to be standing right next to the aisle that said Mary Poppins on it. So animation.
Is that why I got a call from the police department later on that afternoon? Mr. Woloski, can you please come down and pick up your wife?
I know.
She will not let go of Mary Poppins' parasol.
Oh my goodness. So animation from Mary Poppins, original animation was like
within
inches
reach
from my head. Like it was amazing. Yeah, it was so cool. And that whole vault goes back to even some of the shorts that they worked on even before the animated Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and everything. And they kept all the story sketches too, which are storyboards. They just call them story sketches. And they are also like, if it's a particular charcoal or something, they have these like frames that they put each sketch in to keep it from the paper stacking, against each other. So it was amazing. And then we were taken to the digital imaging department, which is the department that's constantly working at converting 65 million pieces of art into a digital library so that Disney animators can access these files from their computers where they sit instead of having to go visit. I mean, it's cool to go visit the Disney Vault as well.
Right.
But like and then, paper does deteriorate over time. So they are just that their whole job is to photograph these at the highest resolution possible and, keep that record, that digital record.
You know what you call that? You call that job security.
Yes, because it took them 7 years to photograph 1 million pieces of art, and there's 65 million pieces. So,
yeah.
The
person who's in charge of doing that, their kids and grandkids will have job security.
Exactly, and they photograph about 1,000 pieces of art per day. It's crazy. And one photograph can be a third of a gig. Like, it's that large of a file. And they even photograph things like that aren't supposed to be there, like dead spiders and cigarette stains and stuff. Stuff that happens on the art. Just, they've run across stuff like that. That's what they were saying. So what I found really cool about this is the fact that Disney animators now, well, they're all animating on computers, right? I mean, that's the way of the future. But they are able to access and learn from this traditional hand-drawn animation frame by frame. So in that way, those Disney animators are infusing this new technology with the past, which is really cool. And Walt Disney is one of the only companies that is actually preserving this art from so long ago, because Walt Disney himself was an artist and understood the importance of this art.
Now, this was the first time you were there. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. I had to work.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like you have been there before.
No, I've never been to this place before. This is the very first time. And I think it was almost the first time it was really open to the public.
Wow. That is an amazing tour.
Yeah. It was so cool. And the reason they were taking us there is that Pinocchio is coming out, or is out on Blu-ray now, out of the Disney Vault. And they've added some special features to the Walt Disney Signature Collection Blu-ray. And what they did was they took 11 months to go back and document all of the animation and story sketches and cells from Pinocchio. And they found some story meeting artwork and stuff and concepts for Pleasure Island that are now on the special features.
That's where Pinocchio went to be a bad boy.
Yes. Yeah, and originally the concept for Pleasure Island was more fluffy. And like, if you think about it, like, it wasn't so dark.
That doesn't work.
Well, that's the thing. Like, one of the things that was described, and there's some concept art that's really kooky, and we got to see the original concept art. But one of the things that Walt Disney looked at, and he found that Pleasure Island, because of where it is in the film, where it takes place, it needed to be darker. So,
you know what I was just thinking of when I thought, wait a minute, you've been there before. We were just at the Disney Family Museum up at the Presidio.
Yes,
and they had all this artwork. This was all sounding familiar.
Yeah, and actually a lot of that concept art from that Pinocchio tour that we took was taken from the ARL.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that cool?
That is fantastic.
And I just want to bring up that yet another place, Skywalkers are everywhere, because our tour guide, Tom Newski, he took our group on this tour, and after he was done, he came up to me and said, "Hey, do you do a podcast? Do you do a Star Wars podcast? I recognize your voice. He's a Skywalker." Oh my goodness. So thank you, Tom. And his desk had some really cool Stormtrooper helmets on it.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Wow. Did you give him a button?
I did.
Oh, nice.
He's got a BB-8 button, so
Nice.
we take those everywhere. So it was an amazing experience, and I just wow.
And you wrote up a whole blog on this too.
I did, and it is on adventuresbydaddy.com. And I want to give a big shout out to Dave Parfit of Adventures by Daddy because, it's through him that we get all these amazing
screenings
media,
and tours.
Yeah.
And
media press events. So thank you so much to Dave Parfit.
Another tangent.
Yes.
Here's something that the Disney film historians won't want to hear. Mark Hamill was just recently on the Nerdist podcast. Phenomenal interview. But he was saying that he knew some of the animators over there at Disney.
Oh.
And at the end of every production, when they knew the picture was locked, didn't need the cells anymore, they would go cell surfing. This is a story he tells to Chris Hardwick, that the animators would put all of these cells on the floor, go running down the hallway and jump on the on the cells and just go sliding down the hallway.
Oh my goodness, nails on a chalkboard.
I know. If they only knew that every one of those cells could buy him another Toyota.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, if you want to hear more of that, once again, go to the episode titled Mark Hamill Returns. Phenomenal interview.
Wow.
All right, now with that, let's talk with Jennifer Landa and Mark Newbold about how to get involved in the Star Wars community. With Celebration coming up, this will be a very interesting conversation for those looking to jump in.
Cantina. In the Tiki Cantina. In the Tiki Cantina. The Woloski's talk and the magic blue. In the Tiki Cantina. Tiki Cantina.
Star Wars has been such a big part of our lives for years and decades now. However, it's not just the films, TV shows, games, and books anymore. It's the community of fellow fans.
One of the questions we get asked is how to get more involved in the fan communities. Here with us now are two guests who can more than offer lots of great advice and direction. From the ForceCenter Podcast and her popular YouTube channel, here is Jennifer Landa.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hello. I feel like I want to come out and do a little dance. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, welcome to your debut performance here on Skywalking Through Neverland.
Yay, finally. Thanks for having me on.
So we got to ask you, being so involved in the fan community, how did you get so involved?
It was just by accident, really. I started I joined Twitter, I think back in, 2009? And back then, StarWars.com, the editor was Bonnie Burton. And Bonnie was, a lot online. And I ended up connecting with her on Twitter. And she introduced me to a whole bunch of fellow fans. And it just became a snowball effect. And then since then, obviously, I've gone to conventions and I've met people in Los Angeles and across the country. And it's been pretty incredible. It really has changed my life for the better.
Nice. And now we also have another big contributor to the Star Wars fan community, and he is the content manager at Jedi News and co-host of Radio 1138. All the way from Mariel, England, here is Mark Newbold. Hey, Mark.
Hey there, how you doing?
Oh, welcome back to Skywalking Through Neverland. We are doing great now that both of you are on the show.
It's always good to be here.
So, Mark, we got to ask you the same thing. What were your first steps in this larger world that is the fan community?
Wow, there's a question. I started online back in '94, my first website, which was don't tell anyone it was a Star Trek website, but it kind of evolved.
All right, goodbye, Mark.
Oh, God.
At least I'm honest. It very quickly evolved into like a general sci-fi site, because 96 was a pretty busy time for genre stuff anyway. But by 98, it became a Star Wars website. And I think those days, before social media really caught on and just before the internet became what it is today, you kind of worked in isolation. So you got your immediate group of friends who were into sci-fi and people you saw at conventions, but the wider world you weren't quite connecting with yet. But it developed and developed, and I started a site called Lightsaber back in '99. and started talking to other website guys, and then started to get out to more and more conventions, and it just kind of developed from there, and sort of led us to where we are now, really.
Wow. I know back in my day, if I wanted to build a fan community, I had to wear a Star Wars t-shirt to school, and hopefully I'd get a couple of friends.
Or I had to recruit friends into my cause because I saw Star Wars first among my friends, and I was like, "You gotta check out this movie," and I'd have them come over, after school, and we'd watch it.
Yeah, but wearing a Star Wars shirt, that everyone else would want to compete with you for your Star Wars knowledge.
Oh,
and
really?
Things got a little tough, and boy, nothing really has changed.
That's true.
Now, when do you think the fan communities first really started becoming a real deal? Jennifer, let's start with you.
That's a great question. I'm sure Mark has some expertise in this area, because I feel like I came online. Really, social media opened up the world to me, and that was where I was able to discover so many fellow Star Wars fans, because growing up it was usually just me and a handful of friends that I had that enjoyed Star Wars, but it really was, like Mark was saying, kind of it was an isolated thing. So when I joined Twitter, when I joined Tumblr, Facebook, and Instagram later on, that was really when I started to meet fellow fans and get inspired by their work. And I thought, you know what? I'm taking so much out of this community. I want to give something too. I want to share my own thoughts on Star Wars. And that was how I decided to start making videos.
Oh, wow. And what time was that? Did you say a year?
I would say it was like late 2009. Really in 2010 was when I started. Yeah, and it was kind of because I was a frustrated actor, and I felt like nobody was getting to know who I was. And I'm like, I'm a major Star Wars fan, and this is what I want to talk about. This is what I'm passionate about. So I just started making videos about it. And it kind of developed into like a little community that I had a hand in creating, which was very exciting and fulfilling to have that kind of control, because as an actor, you don't have a lot of control over working or, so it was really kind of just a hobby more than anything that has developed into something more.
So it sounds like 2009 and that time period, it was all because of social media.
That's kind of when I found my Star Wars fandom.
Yeah. Mark, how about you? Being over there in England, do you feel that's the same way how people got into fandom?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, to a large degree, the whole social media boom, and it really did sort of cotton on sort of 2008, 2009 when it really took off. I mean, Jennifer mentioned Bonnie Burton earlier, and what she was doing on StarWars.com, very much out there talking to people, being the front-facing person for Lucasfilm for a long, long time. Steve Sansweet the same, So that kind of got people talking, and there was the blogs on StarWars.com, which I miss massively. The old blogs, the where you get to talk to John Jackson Miller or Jason Fry or Pablo Hidalgo, and you were just banging stories and questions backwards and forwards. And it was a much looser time. Now, I think to a degree, social media, I mean, in the current world, it's a very tricky place to navigate, but at times. But then it was a kind of more innocent, and I think it was easier in a way to throw out questions and not worry about the answers, and just more of a learning place. So it was kind of more fun in a way, even though it's still fun now. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's always been the case that as the social media has got better and the interactions get better and your world gets bigger, because as a fan in the UK, I was dealing with people I knew in my backyard, and then you get to know people at the next big city when you go to a convention there, and then I'd travel down to London and you'd meet people there, and there was a lot of letter writing in my early days. There was it wasn't emails. So, it's kind of developed in that sense, and it is easier now. And I guess if a fan was coming in now and they were sort of savvy, and I guess we'll get into that, savvy to where to talk to people and how to talk to people in a strange way. There is kind of an etiquette. There's always been an etiquette about talking to people online. You'll get a lot out of it. But yeah, I would say it's definitely the social media era that has really kind of expanded it massively.
Yeah, I've been in the fan community since the 1970s, when you did just form your own fan clubs. But and I thought long and hard about this question, and I think for me, the fan community exploded in 2010 with Celebration 5 in Orlando.
5.
Sarah, that's when you and I made that that Slave Leia video.
You know what? Yeah.
And then James Arnold Taylor responded to it.
Yeah.
And people at the conventions, oh, I know you guys, you were in that video.
Right. And then there was another couple who had done a similar concept for the video, and we happened to meet them in a line.
And we knew them, and I started to think, wait a minute, people are starting to know each other
and
now.
You're right. That was the first time we'd meet people and be like, okay, what's your Twitter? What's your Instagram? So that we can keep in contact, past the convention. Because I think that was always my issues. You'd meet these people at the conventions, and you'd be like, oh, hey, that's nice, nice seeing you, and then you don't see them for another 3 years or something, and you can't form that relationship.
Right. Now, and online, you get to share the different passions you have with each other. Mm-hmm. And now one of the passions with all this going on is becoming more involved in this fan community. So if someone wanted to get some advice on their first steps into this larger world, what would you tell them to do? Jennifer?
I think it really comes down to, do you want this to be a hobby, or do you want this to go into something more? Or do you want to become a professional? And there's a big difference, because if it's a hobby, you can just do whatever it is, whether it's a podcast or making videos or doing blog posts. You can do it whenever you have free time, and there's no real consistency or schedule, and it's fine. You just have fun with it. If you want to be a professional, then you have to treat it like a job. And that's, I think, the challenge, especially if you're an artistic person like myself, is to kind of keep a schedule, and figure out, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to talk about? Because you're going to be dedicating hours and hours to it if you want it to be your professional gig. And it really has to be something that you're passionate about. So, I would say don't look to what's popular or what you think people are going to like. You have to kind of figure out, well, okay, I'm obsessed with action figures. I want to do reviews on action figures. Or, I'm really into fashion, so I'm going to do all about, Star Wars style. Whatever it is, it has to be something that you're excited about, because you're going to be dedicating a lot of your time to it.
Those are some really great points. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people will ask, what can we talk about that will get the most downloads? And other podcasters who come to us for advice, and we tell them, no, do not think that way, because it's just an endless vicious circle you'll never get out of.
Yeah, you got to go after interviews you're excited about,
right?
Or something like that.
Yeah,
so that
and
makes a lot of sense.
I think it speaks to what Mark was saying is back in the day in 2008, 2009, even 2010, it really was kind of more of an innocent time where we were just all so excited to be meeting people, and oh my gosh, have you seen this hilarious photo of or a meme of Admiral Akbar? And it's just this constant back and forth of sharing. But now we're living in a world that's a little bit more slick. People are a little bit more savvy with social media. So I think that people crave authenticity that much more. So if you set out and you're like, okay, I know that this is really popular, I know this is going to get a lot of hits, chances are people are going to see that and they're not going to respond to it, and you're not going to get all the hits and likes that you're hoping for. Whereas if you just share whatever you're happy about, or oh my gosh, can you believe this new trailer for episode 8
for Tangled Ever After?
Absolutely right, exactly. Whatever it is, people will gravitate towards that, no matter how niche you might think it is. Even if it's like, oh, I'm obsessed with Alice in Wonderland, it's great. Do a whole channel dedicated to Alice in Wonderland. The sky's the limit, and that's what's so exciting about this time.
Yeah, Mark, what do you think about that?
If someone came to you and said, Mark, I really want to become more involved, but I need that first step, what should I do to get out there?
Well, follow your bliss is always good advice, isn't it? If it's something that lights you up, then go for it in that respect. And like Jennifer says, do you want to, what do you want your interface with fandom to be? Do you want to be somebody that commentates on things? Do you want to be a blogger or a podcaster or run a website? Do you want to be an idiot like me that tries to do a bit of everything? It depends on what you want to do. How do you want to play it? So if you, like you say, if you want to go down the professional route, you've got to have that dedication, but I think as much as anything, time management, which is something I'm terrible at. I'm down on the south coast of England at the moment. I live in the Midlands, but I'm down on the south coast for a convention. So tomorrow I've got about 8 interviews with different people. So there's a concept designer from Star Trek Beyond, and I'm interviewing Gates McFadden from Next Generation, and Chris Barry from Red Dwarf, and 3 guys from Game of Thrones. And, there's loads of things, and a lot of those things I'm knowledgeable about. I'm a big Trek fan, so I'm pretty safe on that. But the other stuff, Game of Thrones, I've seen every episode, but I'm not an expert. So there's an element of research, which I really enjoy. So this evening I've been researching all the questions and such, because I write for a magazine called Geeky Monkey. So I've got to get interviews out of this but also content for the podcast. And so it's sort of spinning plates, but that's me. I enjoy that. But whoever you are or whatever you do, and to whatever level you want to elevate your fandom or push it or whatever, whether it's a casual thing when you just do it when you want to do it, or, Jedi News is, we're a busy site. So there's always somebody on that site is always doing something, be it me or James or Brian or Matt, or somebody's always on the go, and you get into routines as well. So, it does sound a bit like there's a lot of responsibility. You should never feel like it's a responsibility. I think then it becomes a chore, and when it's a chore, feels too much like a job. And if you're not getting paid, it's no fun. So, you've got to find that balance between what you want to do, how much time you want to give. If it's Friday night, you want to go out with your friends. You don't want to be thinking, I've got to do a blog post tonight. You want to go out and enjoy yourself, So it is striking that balance. But you're right, it is. It's figuring out. And you don't need to figure it out. It's not like a career path yet. It may become one at some point, but you kind of just want to figure out what your interaction is going to be. And I think sometimes, podcasting is the big thing now. Obviously, that's over the last 3-4 years, that's just blossomed like nobody's business. So if you want to get your thoughts out there very quickly, and most people have the capability to do it in one way or another, either hosting a show or being a guest on a show or both. You can get your thoughts out there, and if you've got something about you and you can engage with an audience, then that's one way of sort of laying your thoughts on fandom out there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I have actually a suggestion as well, and that is if you're someone like me who wants to get your opinion out there but doesn't necessarily have a great motor, attach yourself to someone who does have a motor. So, what I mean is, let's say, Richard and I are a good example. I think I would have pod faded years ago, but because Richard's here, he has the idea for the next episode, ready to go the moment we press publish on the previous episode. And so it's awesome working with you, Richard.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. But then also, if you want to be involved in the community but don't have the time necessarily to, make your own website, or you want to write or something like that, you can, ask to be involved with a group of people who are contributing to a website, like Jedi News, perhaps, or retrozap.com, which has a lot of writing contributors as well. So I think that is actually a good way to dip your toes in the community without taking too much responsibility upon your shoulders.
Oh, very, very well said. And you know what? Something just dawned on me as we were all talking, that I think a lot of fans are going into podcasting and blogging and such because they think this is going to be a career path. And sometimes it shows, and the fact that they can become vicious to other people because they think, hey, if you're going to be a podcast dude, you're treading on my ground, or if you're blogging too, I want to stand out. So the more I can put you down, the more you're going to stay down, and I'm going to shine above the rest.
But that always shows through, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's just a sign of desperation. Now, we got a Facebook comment. We put this out on our Facebook group asking people, hey, we're going to be talking to Jennifer Landa and Mark Newbold. So these are the people, if you have any questions, let us know. And we got a comment from one Skywalker who said they avoided online fan communities because he had a distaste for trolls and extremely negative fans. So they want to know how they can address that.
I would say that's the toughest thing specifically with YouTube is, especially if your video does get a lot of hits, it's amazing how all of a sudden you get a lot more negative comments and trolls that just want to be haters. So one thing I would say is if you're going to put out a video, it is really tough to put yourself out there. Sorry, my dog is going a little nuts. But the honestly, the best thing I've done is, you'll get a ton of positive comments, and then you'll get that one little negative person that will say, as somebody told me, go crawl under a rock and die. I was like, oh my God, I was so offended the first time I read that. And then, I was like, look at all the wonderful things that people have said. So it's like you just can't, I would say either don't look at the comments, but part of the wonderful thing about being a part of the community is interacting with other fans and engaging. So I would just say to focus on the good. Don't feed the trolls. And sometimes, your other people in your community will speak up and go after those people, so you don't even have to do it yourself. But yeah, you kind of have to develop a thick skin just so that you don't let those people affect you. Sometimes I will say that I have gotten feedback that was not negative, but was like, critical. And I've actually taken it and gone, you know what, they have a good point. And that's the wonderful thing when you have an audience giving you feedback. Listen to it and see if maybe there is something valid there that you can use to improve your podcast or improve your channel. And I think it's actually really helpful.
Yeah. Mark, have you ever had to deal with trolls?
Only under bridges. Not so much online. No, Jennifer's right. You have got to kind of you've got to take the positives when they come. I mean, it's nice. We do a lot of stuff on Jedi News. We get some nice comments on 1138, which is always well received. I mean, that's we've got 4 shows on the network. 1138 is kind of my baby. That's the show I sort of get the guests for and do a lot of the interviews and do the edit. And I spend a lot of time editing that show to sort of tighten it up and such. So when we get a good comment on 1138, that's always nice for me, especially. But yeah, you do get the odd one. I mean, we have comment boxes on the site, but we don't tend to get too many replies there. But we do get lots of replies on Facebook itself. Which is moderated by our social media guy, Matt Booker, who, if you've ever met Matt, he's the straightest talking guy you'll ever meet. He just says it. I love him. He's brilliant. He just says it. Like it or not, he'll just let you know what he thinks. But when it comes to moderating that particular forum, if you like, he doesn't take any mess. And so when people start getting too much swearing, well, we're all grown up, so the odd word, fair go. But when people really get on the line and start flying out with stuff, he bans them. He doesn't stand for any nonsense. And so because it's not a forum for people to air their views, positive or negative. If you can constructively back up why you think something, you've got every right to say it. That should be how society is. But I think but when people just rail against things and just bash on things and just hate on things, and it's like, oh, please, and that's when it gets tiresome. So we don't come across it too often. I can understand a visual format like YouTube. People tend to have a different sort of connection to it than the written word. It's a different sort of media, if you like, isn't it? So I get why people would have a different sort of interface with that. But we're fairly lucky with what we do. But yeah, like I say, it's the way of the world. People are entitled to their opinions, but like you say, for something that's supposed to be fun, Star Wars is supposed to be fun and escapist and enjoyable, and we all want to sort of get together and talk about these things and chew it over. I do think it's a shame when there is so much negativity knocking around.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it does come with jealousy, because people are doing things that they can't, and you hear a lot from people who are saying, I could do that. Well, then do it.
Yeah.
And plus, like Jennifer, you were saying, and I totally agree with that, sometimes they'll say something negative and it's like, oh, wait a minute. Let me look into Oh, they're right.
Yeah.
They're absolutely so my bad on that. They could have said it a little bit nicer.
Right.
But the fact that they said it and I can find that silver lining and it's right there, and now I've become so much better because I took that criticism. I just didn't shut myself off to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, so another Skywalker, Jeremy Hunt, he asked the question, how can fans become more connected to the needs of those already working in the Star Wars community who may need some help with whatever they're doing already?
Mark, what do you got to say about that?
Well, first off, I'll say hello to Jeremy because I like Jeremy. He's a great guy. I would say, I think one of the things we've tried to do, and it's sort of carried on from what I was doing with lightsabers, whenever anybody reached out or asked for some advice, and I'm no guru, I've been doing this for a while, but I'm no more knowledgeable than anybody else particularly, but I have been doing it for a while, is try and help people out. And over the years, we've had people who've who've written bits for the site. They've sort of come along and said, "Oh, can I write a little piece for your site?" Yeah, sure. Or I'm launching a new podcast, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from one of the inverted commas, bigger networks like, a Retro Zap or a Coffee with Kenobi or whatever. It can be anybody. And I always say, well, if you send me the blurb and the link to the piece and a banner, I'll post it on the site. I've got no issues with that. And some people didn't like that. We had quite a bit of negativity about posting other podcasts from certain quarters, and but I don't want to be told what to post on my website unless Lucasfilm says take it down. I'm going to go for it. So that's what we did, and I think over the years, in terms of podcasts specifically, I'd like to think we've had a fairly good reputation with other podcasts in that we will share them. And I think with podcasts, with writing, with just general queries, I don't see any harm in helping. I don't see anybody else as competition. If there was another website out there doing exactly the same as Jedi News, I wouldn't personally see them as competition. We're all playing in somebody else's sandpit. I don't own the IP. So, we're all doing this together as fans. And yeah, sometimes we get lucky. We might get a bit of sponsorship for the site, pay for the hosting or pay for the website or whatever it is. And all well and good, it all helps, but that's not why we do it. I'd still be doing all of this if everything was coming out of my pocket, and because I love it. So, and I don't see why anybody should feel like they have the right to inhibit somebody else loving it just as much. So I'm all about, share the love, because we're all here because we love Star Wars. So why else would you do it?
Here. I'm glad you don't have that competitive edge, because Sarah and I are going to start a new show called The Last Jedi News.
I'll be on the first show.
And what does it mean? Everyone's going to be commenting. No.
All right, so Jennifer, if someone came to you and asked the same thing, how do I get in to the community? How do I help the needs of someone already in there? If someone came to you, what would you tell them?
Oh, I would be greatly appreciated for any sort of help. I find that some of the ways that I've connected with people is just by establishing a relationship, having interaction with them, whether it's interacting on Twitter or maybe on my Facebook page if they're, regularly commenting, or maybe sending me things like, hey, thought you might appreciate this. And that really helps me out, because I'm like, oh, this is really awesome. I want to share this with, on my page with fellow fans. So I think that people are always open to someone helping them. I think that, remember to keep that professionalism so that people can trust you with the responsibility. Another way too, if you're not so sure about putting yourself out there directly to someone, is just to start doing the work. So if you're an awesome artist, or you have a skill with, building websites or whatever it is, it's amazing how people will find you if you're just doing the work. That's how I actually got involved with StarWars.com and doing blog posts for them, was because I was doing videos about cosplay and about crafts, and they're like, hey, we need someone to do that. Would you be interested in writing for us? So those opportunities kind of come about just by doing your own thing and doing it passionately. So there's kind of two ways that you can do that.
Yeah, we just had a conversation with David Collins about that very thing. Don't wait until people ask you to do something. Just do it.
Right.
Get out there and just show up. Show up and do it, and you will carve a name for yourself.
Yeah.
As long as you keep that consistency up and your reliability above and beyond. If I were to answer this, I would say that for Celebration, I want to say 4, I was an autograph helper for
Official Picks.
What? Official Picks, yes.
Official
Yes,
Picks.
thank you very much. And that was a great way to get myself immersed into that Star Wars community. That was one of the first steps I'd ever taken, was becoming an autograph helper, which you get to sit next to Star Wars celebrities all day and hear stories you shouldn't.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's a learning experience, and yeah.
It was a great learning experience. Yeah, and from there, I think I've volunteered at most conventions just because I wanted to get myself more in there and find out from another angle about how all this works.
That is a great idea.
That's helpful.
Okay, so Kai Charles, another of our Skywalkers, she asks, the 501st and Rebel Legion do incredible charity work. Now, are there any options for non-cosplayers to do community outreach with these groups? Do you guys know?
Yeah, so I know that you can contact the 501st in each city. You know, they have their point person. I believe it's like their publicity person. And you can contact them and say that you're willing to volunteer. I'm also thinking about what's happening at Celebration this year, where somebody is organizing a gala, right, to benefit Carrie Fisher, in honor of Carrie Fisher. And I don't know how they went about doing that, but it's like it's its own thing now, and it's becoming a big event. I know Amy Ratcliffe is hosting it. So, you know, if you just kind of get a bunch of like-minded people together, that's also another way to create a charity or event of some sort.
Yeah, our friend Tyler Westhouse is one of the organizers for that gala.
And Tashi Station, I believe, is behind that. And it's called
Drowning in Moonlight.
Drowning in
Moonlight.
That's it. Yeah, that's awesome. And it just happened organically. And that's so awesome as Star Wars fans that we can do that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's one of those things that really takes a motor. And if you're going to become part of that fan community, depending on where you want to stand, you really need that motor to get yourself out there and do things and charity work. I don't know what else you could do that's better than charity work. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure our friend Obi-Shawn won't mind us giving him a shout out. And he's like the king of charity. So you can find him on Facebook under Sean Crosby and just ask him. Just don't tell him where that suggestion came from, because I didn't ask him first.
I think he does like 100 events a year or something nuts like that.
And he just raises so much money for charities.
So that is another avenue you could... Yeah. There's so many ways you can get into fandom. It's amazing.
That is.
Yeah, now each of you have gone way above and beyond in the fan community, becoming content creators. What was it that made you want to take that next step? I know, Jennifer, you were saying that you were that frustrated actor and you wanted to make things happen for yourself, but was there one particular incident that happened that made you say, okay, I've got to start doing this on my own?
I think, definitely the frustrated actor. But I think for me, it was so exciting to connect with other fans, because for so many years, I was just the lonely Star Wars fan. You know, I watched the movies by myself, and I had Star Wars Trivial Pursuit that I would play by myself.
Did you win?
I always won. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life, is to be able to be around people who are just as excited about Star Wars, and there's no judgment. It was incredible. And I started seeing people being able to, like, you know, do hosting and other things like that. And I was like, wow, this could be an actual career path. Doing what I love, talking about what I love. And so that's kind of how it really started. I mean, you know, and then I've been fortunate to connect with all sorts of people. And now my ForceCenter crew, Ken Knapsack and Joseph Scrimshaw, who brought me on board for the podcast. And I mean, Star Wars, like I said, it's completely changed my life and completely changed my career path in a way that as a child, I never would have imagined. I mean, it's mind blowing. But so I guess it just all kind of happened organically and just, you know, over time and discovering what I enjoyed talking about. And like I said, I'm spending hours editing videos, but it's like I'm editing things about Star Wars. So the time flies.
Right.
Oh, you're making me smile so much. Just that whole connection with other fans is something that I too, you know, growing up in the dark times had that final connection, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's other people who love Star Wars as much as me. Like,
Oh, well, try in the 70s and 80s when you'd go to a convention every 3 months. You got a chance to talk to sometimes an effects artist would be there, or the wife of someone would be there, and you'd have to wait another 3 months to talk to them yet again.
Oh, wow.
So fandom was really hard, but you didn't know anything else, and you had to wait, 4 months for the next Bantha tracks to come out?
Oh my
These
gosh.
kids don't know how lucky they have it.
No, they don't.
Now let's take a break from speaking with Jennifer Landa from ForceCenter Podcast and Mark Newbold from Radio 1138 to hear some shout-outs.
Shout-outs, Skywalker shout-outs. Which Skywalkers get props from here in Neverland? Who was tweeted out? Shout-out. Who was this photo ball. Shout out who will share a post. Shout out post.
So let's start off the shout-outs by shouting out to our good friend Glenn Stein. He had sent us a package, and in that package were these awesome trading cards.
Yeah, and several of them signed.
Yeah.
So
you're holding one right now by John Jackson Miller.
Yes, signed, and it's for his Knight Errant book.
He gave us some 501st cards.
Ooh, and Count Dooku, which is signed. Wow.
By Glenn himself.
By Glenn. Oh, yes, because this is Glenn's cosplay as Count Dooku, which is super cool. He makes a great Count Dooku. I love it.
Yes. One here by Aaron Alston. An autographed card.
Wow, and that's special.
Yes, it is.
Very special.
Yeah. And another card here by Kristen Bell.
Kristen Bell!
There's a Kristen Bell Slave Leia card in this.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's from Fanboys.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Right? Fanboys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, Glenn, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Nice.
it's so cool. You did some incredible cosplay as well.
Yeah.
Awesome job.
All right. Now, we got a very interesting message from James Rowan on our Facebook group.
Yeah, so he writes, Hey, Richard and Sarah. I was just listening to the latest episode on my way to work and heard your theories on the Darksaber entry found in the Imperial databanks on Edu.
Yeah. And then James goes into giving us some info on the expanded universe version of the weapon.
Yeah. So Darksaber was a super weapon that was built based on some original Death Star plans that somehow made their way into the hands of a Hutt. Now, this story was in the novel Darksaber by Kevin J. Anderson. So this story, of course, is in the Legends mythos, but I think that the fine people working on Rogue One slipped this item into the databanks as a wink and a nod to what has come before. Just thought you guys might like to know. Thanks for the quality podcasts week in and week out. You guys are my favorite.
Aww. Thank you very much there, James. And thanks for reminding us that there was a novel called Darksaber.
I know.
By Kevin Anderson.
Yeah.
I had forgotten all about that one. I don't know how.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, I put that on my to-read list. And maybe sometime around 2024 I'll get around to reading it.
Yeah, after we've gotten through all the new canon. Now, I want to shout out to Twitter. We are at SkywalkingPod on Twitter. And Chikafent, they tweeted us, when Mandalorians are born, they use a sorting helmet to determine what house they belong to, per Chikafent headcanon.
This will make a whole lot more sense when we get into our discussion with Teresa Delgado all about the Harry Potter wands and lore and how that ties in and the similarities to the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it was so cool. And now on Facebook, I want to give a shout out to Patrick Pine, who was posting about episode 151, which is our Skywalking Through 2016 and Beyond episode with Trisha Barr,
Tyler Westhouse,
and Brian Young.
Yes.
Yeah. So he says, I absolutely loved this episode. The guest list was like a greatest hits in itself. All favorites of mine. Aww. We thought that was cool. And then he goes on to tell about inclusiveness in fandom. So shall I read this part?
Yeah, go ahead. I like this part.
All right. He says, inclusiveness in the fandom and people actually pursuing getting along despite varying opinions and viewpoints are things I also very actively support in a variety of fandoms and in life as a whole. To punctuate my point, my brief story. I'm 50. I was 11 when I saw Star Wars on its opening day in 77 at the UA Cinema in Seattle, Washington. I've seen each and every Star Wars film, always on opening day. I read and collected all the comics and all of the books as they came out, etc., etc. Now, despite my long history with Star Wars, I very strongly feel that a fan is a fan. I am no better fan than someone who just discovered and truly loves Star Wars. We are all fans. Sure, I've seen TFA 36 times in the theater, and Rogue One 16 times so far.
Whoa.
I know, so I might know the film in more detail than someone who has only seen it once or a handful of times, but I'm not a better fan. I just am pursuing one of my life's passions and pleasures and enjoying films I love.
Wow.
Aww, that is really cool.
That is fantastic. And I know some people will say just because I've seen a movie more times than you, then they're a better fan. But I like how he says that he's not a better fan just because he'd seen the films more times.
Right.
And I don't know what does create a better fan, if anything. Is that even a thing?
No, I don't know. I really do believe. I mean, because you have fans young and old, and like I got into Star Wars 15 years after you, almost, and yet you're not better than me because of that. We just have different experiences and different things to share and different viewpoints.
You know what? I would say you're a better fan if you treat other fans the way you want to be treated.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, fandom is what you make of it, much like life. And so Patrick concludes, once again, great guests, great episode, worth repeat listens, and at almost 3 hours per, that's saying something about what a solid show this was in this fan's opinion.
Well, thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard to believe we stumbled on that like 2 weeks later.
I know. Yeah. I don't know why we didn't see this comment until now, but we wanted to thank you so much, Patrick, for sharing that with us. And we love when you Skywalkers do that. And it's amazing to get that feedback. So thank you so much.
All right, with that, let's now reveal the Skywalker of the Week.
Martin Keeler, Martin Keeler, Martin Keeler, Martin Keeler.
Congratulations, Martin Keeler.
On the last Facebook or Periscope, he had commented he was not the Skywalker of the Week yet.
Congratulations, Martin.
And of course, a big thanks and a big shout out to our good friend Rob Dellinger for composing the Skywalker of the Week jingles week in and week out. And we all know who Rob Dellinger is, right?
The John Williams of podcasting.
And now, following in his dad's footsteps, Rob's son Robbie, he broke down the Imperial Suite from the Rogue One soundtrack. He transcribed it and played each part one at a time using GarageBand on his iPhone.
Oh, that's so amazing. Well, let's listen to it. Nice.
Amazing.
Wow.
On his iPhone.
That is cool. Wow.
Maybe we can ask Robbie to compose a future Skywalker of the Week. Oh, that'll be fun.
Be neat.
That'll be fun. And now with that, let's jump back into the fan community discussion with Mark Newbold from Jedi News and YouTube content creator Jennifer Landa.
What about you, Mark? What was that one thing that made you take that next step?
Wow. I mean, I started doing fan fiction in 1982, and I've never stopped. So I've sort of continuously written stuff ever since then. So that's what really kind of got me into the creative side of it. And then through the 80s, me and a friend used to do audio dramas, and then into the sort of late 80s, the role play started, and through to the internet era, which I mentioned earlier. So it's all kind of built up. But I always kind of wanted to be a writer. I was very much a frustrated writer, but just never knuckled down and got anything written. And then I think that the big step for me, really, two things. In 2000, I did my first interview. I interviewed Kevin J. Anderson, and then about a month later, I interviewed Dave Prowse. And then that kind of started to build up. So the interview thing, which has kind of become my thing, I guess, over the years, sort of built up. And then in 2006, my first piece in The Insider. So and that took a while to really get going, but then that sort of got traction. So that really sort of stepped up. And then all of a sudden, when you're actually making a bit of money from writing, so The Insider, and then I started doing StarWars.com. I mean, I've been doing StarWars.com since 2012. I think I was one of the first non-Lucasfilm people on there. So that's kind of developed as well. And when I just get a buzz, I mean, Richard just mentioned Bantha Tracks. That was my grail when I was a kid, waiting for that thing to come through. That people don't, and that's why I got such a kick out of doing The Insider, because to me, The Insider is basically Bantha Tracks. It's the successor to Bantha Tracks, you know, and that was always the thing that I wanted to, you know, goodness knows I sent enough letters off, never got one in, but, you know, I always wanted to be in there somehow. So that was the thing that really, you know, made me want to go for it was Bantha Tracks. If ever they could bring that back, I'd be all over that. But yeah, I think just getting out there and pushing it, and then, you know, those things happened. I'd done other magazine bits before, but those things happened, and then now doing Geeky Monkey, and I write for the Metro, which is the UK's largest free newspaper. I do bits for them, you know, and there's other things that are sort of percolating. Next month I actually start on the official Star Trek magazine, so I'll be writing for that as well, which is kind of cool. So I'll be doing both, so don't tell anyone. But it's fun and it's nice, and whilst it's certainly not, I do other work as well, real, inverted commas, real life work, you know, it's not enough to sustain me. But the goal is to, you know, get a book. I'd love to be involved in a book somehow, you know, get on a book, be part of a team on a book or something. Just for me, you know, just to sort of look, you know, walk into a bookstore and go, yep, that's me, you know, just for my own personal little bucket list thing. So I'll get there one day.
That's amazing. You know what? You talk about, Mark, creating old like fan films, you said, and some fan fiction as well in the 80s. Yeah. So I want to know, is there a Mark Newbold archive?
There kind of is. In a scary way. Oh yeah, I've still got my I think I wrote it in 82. Me and some friends were going to do a cine film, like a Super 8 cine film in 1981. A friend of mine played the keyboards, he was going to do the music, and we got this whole little script worked out, and some of the characters ended up in the story that came in 82, and it all carried on. I think when I was doing Lightsaber, we had it was me and 3 other guys doing all the writing, and we had 200 short stories on the site and 2 full-length novels and sort of the screenplays for sort of the scripts, if you like, for these audio dramas, and loads of artwork. It was ridiculous. And actually, I was writing last year for a magazine called Build the Millennium Falcon, which came out in the UK, where you could week by week build a 2-foot-long model of the Falcon, and I wrote on the magazine and actually managed to get the little region of space from my fanfic. I actually managed to get it into Build the Falcon, so I guess technically it's canon now, which is kind of cool. But you know, I need to push that, get it in the film. But yeah, it was just great fun as a kid, just writing my own sort of continuations. You know, the Marvel comic would come out because we got the monthly UK Marvel monthly and weeklies and such, you know. And as a kid, I'd just read an issue. I didn't want to wait till next month. I just wanted to see what happened next. So I'd write my own version of what happened next. And then next month the issue came out. It was nothing like the thing I'd written. So I thought, I need to make my own story. So I ended up sort of spinning it off and doing my own thing. But it was great fun. It was great fun. But that's all up there, and it's all part of, you know, the great big broth of Star Wars, if you like. You know, we've all got our own stories, haven't we? And our own entry point into fandom.
Yes.
Right. Now, how many fan communities are there that people want to jump in? And I think it's like the EU back like 5 years ago. It's like, where do I enter in? How many entry points are there? There's podcasts, there's YouTube videos. Can you name some others?
Let's see. There's podcasts, YouTube videos. I would say blogs. You know, certainly even on Tumblr, people just have some really awesome Tumblr blogs. They're just sharing photos, or, you know, even just sharing some thoughts that they have on, you know, the latest Snoke theory, whatever it is. So there's stuff going on there. Let's see, what other things can I think of?
Mark, jump in if you have any.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, there's massive Facebook communities. I think there's people out there who are crazy Star Wars fans who I've probably never heard of, or certainly never heard of Jedi News, or don't listen to Skywalking, but they're big fans, but they're just not clued into. Sorry, they're not clued into our sort of area of the fandom. I'm sure I've thought this before. I'm sure there's huge chunks of Star Wars fandom that don't interact with our sort of, it's like the red half and the blue half, you know. There's never the twain, you know. There's parts of the fandom that don't interact with the other parts, because we know there's millions of us. But you know, and in the UK, you think, well, you know, Jedi News, for example, we're the big site in the UK, you know, with a site that's got the 10-year, and we've been around a long time. And then you'll get chatting to people at a convention, and they'll go, "Oh, where are you from?" "Oh, Jedi News." You know, and we're on. I was on BBC Radio 4 last night and doing a quiz show and talking all about Jedi News. You know, and we're on telly, and you know, we're kind of out there. and people talking, they're big Star Wars fans, and they've not heard of you. Well, it's arrogant to assume that they would, but by the same token, you kind of think, well, we've been around for so long. If you're a fan, how can you not have at least heard of us? And I think there's people who are into the I was going to say West End games, into the Fantasy Flight game stuff, or into the Battlefront stuff,
right.
or and then there's all these, the gaming side, all these little communities that's totally, it's their focus, and maybe they're not into the podcasting or news site or blog or whatever it may be, So I think there are lots of little camps. They don't always intermingle.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that's really fascinating. Is where I have people that subscribe to me on YouTube, but they're like, oh no, I'm never on Twitter. I don't have a Twitter account. Or likewise, Facebook people, they're like, oh no, I never watch anything on YouTube. I only watch what appears in the feed. So it's really fascinating. They are these little, like you said, these little camps that are kind of set up around the internet, and it's something to keep in mind if you're going to be sharing your content. To remember to try and post it on as many of those sites as you can, because it's going to reach a different audience.
That's a good point.
That's certainly true.
Yeah. A friend of ours just had reached out to me and Sarah saying that he wanted to do a podcast on fan films. And I thought that's a great idea. That's something that really has not been tackled as far as I know. And I think that's one of those lost arts through the ages.
Oh, you think fan films is a lost art?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I could be totally wrong, but back when Sarah, when you and I made our fan film, TPZ, in 2012, fan films were everywhere. Now, I just don't see them as much anymore, and I know they can be very, very costly and time-consuming, but that's one of those things I just hope people will continue to do.
Right.
And like anything else, do your research and finding out what has not been done. And with podcasts or anything else, do your homework. Find out what has not been done so far and tackle that market.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Find your niche, basically.
Yeah. The more niche you can be, the more unique you can be. Try and find, like you say, find something that nobody else is doing, or if you find something that other people are doing, try and put a different spin on it. I mean, we have an advantage, is that 3 of the 4 shows on Jedi News Network are Brits, and we're all from different parts of the country, so we all sound different. None of us sound the same, and we've got John and Marie and Teresa doing Galactic Fashion, so that's different again, and we try and do all these different things. And hopefully appeal to people. And some people might listen to our show and go, I can't listen to that guy. He talks too fast and I don't understand what he's saying. Okay, fair enough. Read my stuff instead of listening to me. That's cool. I can live with that. But just do something different. If you're coming in and now, especially now, when there's so many shows doing Star Wars or doing Star Wars and other elements, obviously the Disney thing now of the past 4 or 5 years has become a more intertwined with Star Wars by nature, because they're together now. And this show, obviously, if somebody comes in now to do a general Star Wars magazine show, they're really going to have to make it stand out, because you do already have shows like Star Wars Report, shows like Rebel Force Radio. There's already shows out there doing that. You kind of do need to come in with a different hat and try and present it in a different way. So I would say, if you're coming in and you intend to be a content maker, if you like, via a podcast or a blog or whatever, do something that's different. Just try and make it stand out.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Definitely.
One group that has not been represented yet are the cosplayers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
That's another great avenue.
Cosplayers and artists.
To really enter into the fandom.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, what kind of cosplay background do you have, and what kind of advice would you give someone wanting to come into the community through cosplay?
I would say to just, disregard what you think. Like, so let's say you want to cosplay as Rey, but you don't look anything like Rey. That's okay. That's going to be your take on the character. When I wanted to do the Death Star cosplay, I was inspired by this piece of artwork that I had seen. It was just such a unique take on an object in the world of Star Wars. And so I thought, let me just try something different and make a skirt out of paper mache in the shape of a Death Star. And I was terrified because I thought that people were going to laugh at me and people were going to think I was nuts. But and maybe some people did. I don't know. But overall, people were really excited just as much as I was, and it felt so awesome to have fans get it and laugh along with me. So I would say, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And even if you don't know how to sew, there are other ways that you can create a costume. You can do Disney bounding, right?
Yeah.
Star Wars bounding. So there's a lot of ways that you can enter into the cosplay community, even if you don't have, a budget to create some fancy costume. And there's a lot of great posts online about how to do those things. So if you've never worked with craft foam to make armor, there are a ton of tutorials on YouTube that you can look at, or even, ask a friend who might be really crafty. Maybe they can help you out and you can have a little cosplay party together. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways, and I feel like the world of cosplay has opened up. And the one thing I love about the Star Wars community is that by and large, everyone is really supportive of each other. I mean, we talk about the trolls and things like that, but they're such the minority. I would say more often than not, you get people that are going to support you, give you a Force 5 and say, "Oh my gosh, that's such a clever take," and it's a really warm and welcoming community, and that's why I love this community so much.
Oh yeah, definitely. And speaking of community, we're about to have kind of a community family reunion at Star Wars Celebration Orlando. So let's say a Star Wars fan is headed to Star Wars Celebration for the first time and wants to be a part of that larger Star Wars community. What advice do you have for them that they should do while they're there? Maybe Mark?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. When I was at, what was the celebration last year? It was London. So when I was at Celebration, I should know that. That's not far from me. When I was at Celebration London, an American traveller, and forgive me, I can't remember his name, and I really should know his name. He travelled over on his own, and he'd set up a website. Quite kind of by his own admission, a nervous kind of guy. Wasn't a mingler. Wasn't particularly a social animal, if you like. But he travelled on his own. He's a massive Star Wars fan, and he wanted to come and experience it. And he started up a website and a Facebook page, basically about people traveling on their own coming to Celebration. It was all about getting out there and doing it, and I feel terrible for getting his name, but I was so impressed because one, he came over and said hello and he knew who I was, which always impresses me. So I'm amazed anybody ever knows who I am, but we had this really cool conversation after one of the panels we'd done, and it made me think, what would you do if you're a fan and you kind of you're the only Star Wars fan in your group? That's not necessarily an unusual thing. I was very lucky. Most of my best friends, and they're still friends from sort of 30, 35, 40 years ago, all Star Wars fans. So, and I was always the one that never let go. So they all know me as the Star Wars guy. But, I'm very lucky. But not everybody is in that boat. So basically, in my normal long-winded way, I think the best way is to get over there. You've got to be there to be in it. Obviously, you've got to get to the place first. You've got to get to Orlando or Anaheim or London or whatever. But you're in a place where generally, to my mind or to how I see it, it's not cliquey. We're all there because we love Star Wars. It is. You're stuck in a lift and you see another guy in a Star Wars t-shirt. You just see the little bit that says Empire Strike, you know what I mean, on somebody's t-shirt, and you just look and nod and give them the thumbs up, and that's it. You're kind of connected already because both of you know. But when you're at a Star Wars convention, everybody is wearing a Star Wars t-shirt essentially. So it's kind of easier to strike up that conversation. But yeah, just get in there. You're not going to be if ever you were, or if ever you thought, I'm the nerdy guy that's going to get laughed at, you really are not going to get laughed at a Star Wars convention for being a nerdy guy, or girl. We're all there because we love it, and we're all there because we want to talk about it, and we're all there to share it. So I say, dive in and enjoy and make the most of it, because it's supposed to be fun.
We did a survival guide last year or 2 years ago for Star Wars Celebration Anaheim, and we had asked a lot of people if they were going there the first time, what you were nervous about, what you weren't that excited, what made you on edge. And one woman said, "Well, I want to cosplay, but I don't feel like my costumes will be up to par." And it's like, no.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And if someone doesn't like the way you cosplay, then why do you care what they think? If it's a total stranger and they're not liking the efforts you made, and don't let that stranger dictate your mood. But plus, I think that having a costume on a celebration is more of an invite. It's like a conversation piece.
Definitely.
Totally.
That's a great point.
Like Jennifer, you and I had actually met.
Oh.
Years and years ago at a convention. I want to say, were you at Celebration 5?
In Orlando?
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
Okay, we were. It was a group around a panel. I don't remember what. And you came in wearing this big Star Wars dress, and people were flocking to you, going, "I love this dress. I love this." And they were really they started conversations with you. And before I knew it, there was like a big community of fans gathering around you and your dress.
Oh my gosh, I don't remember this.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't remember what panel it was, and. But, I remember that, and I thought, wow, that really struck a nerve, like, that really can help people wearing
break
something.
Down barriers.
Break down a big barrier, especially if you're not an extrovert. That will bring people over to you.
That's true.
Absolutely. Like Mark was saying, I've had so many great conversations outside of Star Wars conventions, like going to the market and I'm, wearing my Rebel t-shirt. And I get into a conversation with a guy bagging my groceries about, oh, you love Star Wars too. Okay, what do you think? What are your theories about who are Rey's parents? All these conversations that I've had with fellow Star Wars fans out in the wild. It really is a great way to break the ice. And for, I'm thinking for people who don't feel like, oh, my costume won't be up to par. I feel like if you don't dress up, you'll feel like you're missing out, even if it's just wearing all of your Star Wars pins or whatever flair you want to wear. That's your time to do it,
57 pieces of flair.
Yeah. Out of all the places, that's where you're going to get, people are going to love it and they're going to get it. And it's going to be such a fun way to interact with other people, whether it's waiting in line, to, the celebration store or waiting for a panel. You'll have some awesome conversations just by breaking the ice with those little pieces, jewelry, whatever it is.
That's definitely awesome advice. And I would say one piece of advice that wouldn't even take you very much is that if you're standing in line for a panel, instead of staring at your phone and, looking at the social media on your phone, actually maybe try to start a conversation with just the people next to you. I mean, we made some great friends that way. Yeah. And you can ask them, hey, can we, what's your Facebook name? Let's chat over Facebook now, so you feel more comfortable on your phone, but at least you've made that connection.
Right.
Yeah. And I hope I don't sound too conceited by saying this, but I think one of the greatest thing about doing a podcast is meeting people who admire your work.
Yeah.
And we've been recognized at Disneyland or is out and about. People will say, do you two do a podcast? Are you skywalking through Neverland?
Or people recognize our voices.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I was just at the Animation Academy. What is it? The Disney Vault, basically. And the guy who was taking us on a tour to the Disney Vault, at the end, he was like, you do a podcast, don't you? I was like, yes. It's a Star Wars podcast, right? I'm like, yes. I recognize your voice. It was like so awesome.
Has that ever happened to you too?
It has happened, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
No. It has happened occasionally. Not often, but it does happen. I think because being a Brit, and especially when I'm in America, most people in America think I'm Australian, but there you go. But yeah, it does happen, and it is. I'm always. And it probably sounds really hokey, but I'm always mega flattered. One, that people listen at all, because it's in a way it's a validation of the time and effort you're putting in. And I'm not doing it to win awards, with the podcast that will never win an award probably, but not that we need one. But it's nice to know people listen, and nice to know that you've connected in a small way enough that they'll go, "You're Mark from Jedi News," or "You're Mark from 1138." I go, yeah, or "I heard you on Skywalking in Neverland," or whatever it might be. It's nice that people have sort of made that connection. So I always get a kick out of that, definitely.
Yeah, even when people say, you know what, you were the inspiration for us doing our podcast.
Oh,
I love hearing that. Jennifer, being on such a popular YouTube channel, I'm sure you get that a lot.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, come on. Don't be modest.
No, it's on, and it makes me feel like I'm on Sesame Street, but it really is almost like meeting new friends when you have people come up to you and they're like, oh my gosh, I loved that video that you did, or I remember you from this panel, and I really have formed friendships with people over the years because I'm kind of a shy person. And so when someone comes up to you and has strikes up a conversation, like it's really neat. And I think what I love about the community is that it's a lot of, give and take. And so like you're talking about, people get inspired by the work that we do. And that's makes it so fulfilling when you're putting in all this time to know that people are enjoying it. And I've had some people where they're like, oh, I saw you, but I didn't want to bother you. I'm like, no, please bother me. Because honestly, like when you are a creator, there are some days where it can be challenging, and maybe you're stuck on something and you're like, why am I doing this? And then when someone comes up and is like, oh my gosh, I loved that episode, that podcast episode, it's like, it just recharges your battery to keep going. And in some ways, I also love like how now we have all these new Star Wars films with these actors that are a part of our community too, and interacting with us fans. It's like we're getting that on that level too. So it's fantastic, all the give and take between each other.
Yeah,
definitely.
A few years ago, Jennifer, you had done a video where you were dancing to Miko's Star Wars at like Union Station or something, and I thought someone's gonna stop her and go, "Hey, I know who you are."
No. In fact, people I think were a little frightened. In Los Angeles.
Yes.
In Los Angeles, they're like, okay, she's clearly a crazy person. I'm not going to engage.
Hilarious.
That's funny.
Well, you know what? As we wrap things up here now, Jennifer, you were also saying on a recent ForceCast that you were going to be doing some more videos. Can you tell us what you have in the works?
Yes. So I'm a new mom. So I'm, trying to rework my schedule around my daughter's nap time. But I really want to start making videos regularly again. So I'm trying to figure out, I don't know if I can keep up with all the latest news, because that's challenging because there's always news breaking. So I'm thinking that I'd like to focus on doing some more sketches, of course, making crafts and maybe making some, food things. I don't know, but I just want to get back into it and start engaging with my fellow Star Wars fans on YouTube.
Awesome.
Right on. And how about you, Mark, with 1,000 projects you have going on a daily basis?
Is there anything new you want to tell us about?
There's one thing that's possibly on the horizon. If it came off, would be really, really cool, but I can't say anything yet.
Really? What is it?
It's local to the UK, but it could have some potential. So as soon as I know, if it happens, then I will certainly let you guys know. But that we're kind of just on the early sort of perimeters of trying to make that happen. Bearing in mind, I have a face for radio, so. But no, it's just I think at the moment it's pushing on. We've redesigned Jedi News over the last 6 months, so that's been tweaked and adjusted as we speak, and that's kind of getting more closer and closer to what we all want as a team. We've all got our sort of wish list of things we want on that site, and it's really getting there. So we're very, very pleased with that. And the podcast, I did my first podcast in 2005. Did sort of 18 months of a show called Setting in Radio back on Lightsaber, and that was very rough and ready. Whatever I could record with, yogurt pots and string, whatever, we'd just sit down usually with a can of beer and just record an hour or 20 minutes or whatever once a month of whatever was happening in Star Wars and sci-fi. And it's very loose, but it gave me enough confidence that when I started doing sort of like tonight, sort of guest shots, if you like, on shows in, I think 2006 again was the first time I did a guest shot on a podcast called Coruscant Cast, a UK show from way back. I had the confidence to go on and just talk. And I still feel, and I'm sure you guys are the same, all of you are the same, you learn a little bit from everything that you do. And your depth of knowledge and the little tweaks and adjustments that when you're starting out, you make massive adjustments because you don't know anything. But the further into it you get, you're just making subtle tweaks and little changes and just tightening things up. So the steps are smaller, but they're more important as you go on, I think. So, and I just want to keep getting better at this whole podcasting thing and just making the network more of something that people would want to come and listen to, and we may be adding some more shows. We're not sure at the moment, but there's potential there. So just expanding the palette of what Jedi News puts out there. But as long as it's fun, once it's boring, once it's tiresome, once it's a chore, that's when you'll see me doing far less than 1,000 things, But at the moment, I get such a kick out of doing everything. There's nothing that bores me at the moment. So, and 46 next month, so I must be doing something right, to still want to be doing all this, now, and I'm loving it. So yeah, more of the same, but better. That's the hope.
Well, for those 1 or 2 fans out there who don't know about Jedi News, can you tell us about it and what it's all about?
Jedi News. We're a daily news site. That's our kind of MO. So anything and everything that's out there, as much as we can, we try and cover it. So magazine news, comic news, film news, anything kind of related to Star Wars. We touch on other things, a lot of collecting news. It started off as a collecting site and then merged with my old site, Lightsaber. So we've got more of the sort of the general news element to the site over the past sort of 5 or 6 years. It's just trying to be. We're kind of trying to be everything to everybody, but not to dilute what we present. It's really seemed to have sort of stepped up the last year or so. It feels like it's kind of hit another gear. And with that, we used to be part of Rebel Force Radio 1138 and Collectors Cast. We came away from there at the start of last year and set up Jedi News Network, and now that works in concert with the main site. They're very much sort of part of the same thing, and with our social media feeds, especially the Instagram, we're really trying to give people as many entry points to Jedi News and by extension the Star Wars news as we can. So we're all very proud of it. It's good fun. We all put a lot of time and effort into it, so hopefully that translates.
Awesome. And that is JediNews.co.uk, correct?
That's us. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
And then as we wrap up, Mark, can you tell people where they can find you and Jedi News on social media?
Yeah, on Twitter, you'll find us at Jedi News UK. I am Jedi News 2010. You'll find us on Instagram at Jedi News and Facebook at Jedi News as well, and YouTube at Jedi News. So if you just search Jedi News, you'll find us everywhere. And as you say, the website, jedinews.co.uk. We're also out there, Jedi News Network. So you'll find us on Libsyn, Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud, pretty much everything as much as we can. So, we're like a virus at the moment. We're trying to get everywhere.
That's pretty much is 1,000.
And we have a very nice podcast app as well. We have a free Jedi News app as well. So you can get that Google Play and iTunes as well. So, and it's free, so download it.
Okay, great.
Good deal. All right, how about you, Jennifer? If someone wanted to reach out to you and ask you about expanding their fandom in the community, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media sites at Jennifer Landa, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jennifer Landa, or you can follow our ForceCenter podcast feed. On Twitter, we are at ForceCenter Pod. We also have a Facebook page where we ask fans questions and we incorporate them into the show. I think we're also on iTunes, Podomatic, and Stitcher. I'm also not that techy of a person, so I can't quite remember. And on that feed, we have our main show, where we tackle, news stories with Ken Knapsack, myself, and Joseph Scrimshaw. We have a lot of other shows like Databank Brawl, where we pit 2 Star Wars characters against each other and have them fight. That's a lot of fun. And also my podcast, which is The Jedi Beat, where I kind of look at more in-depth issues. So right now I'm working on a Jedi Beat on Carrie Fisher. So remembering her life. Yeah, we all miss her so much. So it's been challenging to get through this one, but I'm looking forward to releasing that soon.
Yeah, and a shout out to you for doing that Jedi Beat on Marsha Lucas. I learned a lot.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, she's kind of an unsung hero and she doesn't get mentioned too often, but the work that she contributed is pretty amazing, and it definitely made a huge impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got legions of fans everywhere except for George Lucas and Alec Guinness.
Oh.
Not the biggest Marsha Lucas fans there.
Not so much.
All right. everyone, Jennifer and Mark, thank you very much for joining us, and we really appreciate all the great advice you had to offer to our Skywalkers.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
me. This was a lot of fun.
Now, let's discuss the similarities found between the Darksaber, lightsabers, and wands found in Harry Potter. Now, if you have not yet read the Harry Potter books or seen the movies, beware, there are major spoilers ahead.
Attention, Skywalkers. Spoilers ahead.
Warning! Warning!
Attention, Skywalkers. Spoilers ahead.
Warning!
We had such great feedback from our last episode where we went into the history and future of the Mandalorian Darksaber. This weapon, along with the Jedi's lightsaber, are not always picked by their owner, but pick their owners.
We made connections to various other films and mythological stories, especially to the wands in Harry Potter. So with so much to discuss, we brought in a wizarding expert in the world of Potter. From Fangirls Going Rogue, it's my co-host, Teresa Delgado.
Hey, Teresa.
Hey, Richard. And Sarah.
Well, welcome back to Skywalking Through Neverland, and this is where you can let your Harry Potter freak flag fly.
I am a massive Harry Potter nerd, so I have tattoos for both franchises. I have a Deathly Hallows symbol. It's actually worked into my massive Lord of the Rings piece. That's my whole right hip.
Let's go into a territory that I know something about, which is not Lord of the Rings or sports. But let's talk Darksabers and wands and lightsabers.
Yes. So, Teresa, when you were hearing the origin story of the Darksaber, what does that remind you of in Harry Potter canon?
Well, it's interesting. You're the one that brought it to my attention, Sarah, that it was very much like the animated sequence that they did in Deathly Hallows Part 2. I hadn't actually put that together.
Oh.
But just, the animation, I hadn't really thought about it. But the mythology of the Darksaber, I was like, Elder Wand, anybody? Anybody? No?
Yes.
No? As I looked around to the nobody that was sitting with me while I was watching. But it's very much the Elder Wand type of deal.
So
okay.
With the Elder Wand, who can only... it's been so long since I've read the Harry Potter books.
Well, should we go into the Tale of Three Brothers fairy tale for people
does
who
that tie into the
may
Elder
not
Wand?
know? Yes. Well, this is the origin story of the Elder Wand comes from this fairy tale that's told to wizards and witches, young wizards and witches. So 3 brothers were walking in the woods and came upon a treacherous river, and they conjured a bridge with their wands to cross it. But halfway across, Death met them because he felt cheated of his due. They were all supposed to die in this river. So Death pretended to congratulate them on figuring out a way to cross, and then offered them gifts of their choice. So the eldest brother, he asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence, and so Death fashioned the Elder Wand out of a piece of elder wood. And then the second brother chose a resurrection stone to recall the deceased. The third brother chose something that would allow him to go forth without Death being able to follow, which is the invisibility cloak, which Harry Potter famously has throughout the series. Now, the first brother, we'll just follow the first brother because he has the Elder Wand. He traveled to a village that same night where a wizard whom he had quarreled lived. He dueled with the wizard, and he won by killing him because he had the Elder Wand. So he walked into an inn. The first brother walked into an inn and bragged about this powerful wand. But that night, a wizard who had heard him bragging killed the first brother in his sleep and stole the wand. And so Death took the first brother for his own.
Gotcha. Okay, so now what parallel can we make between that and the Darksaber?
Well, it's kind of like when Kanan is saying, once people know that you have this, you will be challenged. People are going to want to fight you to be the one that is the master of the Darksaber. It's kind of that whole dynamic that if you are in possession of something this powerful, then ultimately somebody is going to want to hunt you down.
Now, famously, did Grindelwald have hold of the Elder Wand before Dumbledore took it?
Grindelwald did have the Elder Wand. Yes, he did.
Didn't he lead a bunch of followers?
Now, before you go on with that, remind me who Grindelwald is?
Grindelwald, he actually was expelled from Durmstrang. He went to Durmstrang.
Okay.
And he was expelled from Durmstrang, and his aunt was Bathilda Bagshot, who lived right next to the Dumbledores in Godric's Hollow.
Okay.
And so Dumbledore, when his mom was killed, if you guys have, well, you guys have seen Fantastic Beasts. I have a whole theory on that business. He had to go and take care of his younger brother, Aberforth, who really had no interest in being taken care of by his older brother. But also he had to take care of his sister.
Right.
His younger sister, Ariana. And so while he was there, he met Grindelwald because he was living next door. And they were planning.
Friends.
They were friends, and there's speculation that they were more than friends, that they were in a relationship with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they were planning this whole thing. They were obsessed with the Deathly Hallows. All they talked about was doing something for the greater good. But suddenly, Grindelwald started to take it to a place that Dumbledore did not want to go, which was, this taking over the world type of business.
Right.
And then they got in a big argument and a big fight, and somehow in the middle of that argument and fight, Ariana Dumbledore was killed.
Right.
And so that is the background. And then Grindelwald did get the Elder Wand. He got it from the wand maker, the other wand maker, not Ollivander, but Grigorovich. There we go. He steals it. Yeah, he steals it from Grigorovich, and so he has it. So it's interesting because at the time of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Grindelwald has the Elder Wand.
Ooh.
He has it.
Okay.
And the Fantastic Beasts movies are taking us through all of this. And supposedly, we will be ending the last one with the showdown between Dumbledore and Grindelwald.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be intense, crazy crap. Like, I'm so excited.
Okay.
I'm such a nerd.
Yeah, so my question is, does Grindelwald wield this Elder Wand and lead a bunch of people? A bunch of wizards?
He does. That's the first Wizarding War. Yes.
Okay. So in that way, it is a lot like the Darksaber.
Well, let's talk about the Darksaber, how it's attuned to the user. Whereas it was really heavy for Sabine until she started to feel connected with it. How is that similar to the Harry Potter wands?
Any witch or wizard can use any person's wand. They can use them, but it's not going to work perfectly for them or as well as their other wand would unless they are the rightful owner of that wand and have formed a bond with that wand.
To jump off that, I was looking at Pottermore earlier today, and a wand is actually a quasi-sentient magical instrument through which a witch or wizard channels his or her magical powers. And the wand actually learns from its owner over time.
Okay.
Well, and the wands are only as powerful as their owners can be. The wand is essentially a tool to help the talent of the wizard come out.
Like channels its talent.
Yeah, but it's not that the wand is powerful in and of itself. But that's what makes the Elder Wand different, is that people who are seeking the Elder Wand are purely seeking power. And the Elder Wand is, in a way, I guess, in my opinion, it's kind of cursed because it is very powerful, but just because you have it does not automatically make you a powerful wizard.
Right.
Now, whereas the lightsabers now, they have the kyber crystal, which is attuned to its Jedi owner. In Harry Potter, is there something in the wand that is similar, or is it just the wand is that powerful? It's made out of something that is so connected to its owner.
It's the cores. There's a sentience to both the cores of the wand and the core of the saber, which is the crystal. And then in the world of Ollivander, he uses 3 cores and 3 cores only.
Right.
He uses unicorn hair, phoenix feather, and dragon heartstring. Those are the 3 cores that he uses. And each core has its own unique capabilities. So, for example, I have Pottermore up right here, like unicorn hair. It generally produces the most consistent magic and is least subject to fluctuations and blockages. Wands with unicorn cores are generally the most difficult to turn to the dark arts. But things can happen to a wand with unicorn hair. For example, if it's being used for the dark arts or mishandled, then the hair that's used on the inside can actually get to where it sort of dies and it has to be replaced.
That makes sense for a unicorn. I love that. I believe it's Harry Potter and Voldemort share a phoenix feather core. Like they both have phoenix feathers from the same phoenix, which is Fox.
Yeah, and it's the first time that's the only time that's ever happened. Fox the Phoenix gave 2 feathers, and they were used in the same, in Harry's wand and Voldemort's wand, and those wands just happened to pick those 2 individuals, and so in a sense, those wands are brothers.
Yes.
Because their cores are connected.
Right. But what I find interesting is the way that Padawans acquire kyber crystals, how we learned in the Clone Wars. Right, the Clone Wars episode.
Yeah, The Gathering.
The Gathering, when all the Padawans went to Ilum.
Right.
And they had to basically, go on like a trial?
Well, they had to go into the cave and see what kyber crystal called out to them.
Right. And in that way, if you think about it, that's a lot like going into Ollivander's shop and holding a bunch of wands and figuring out which one actually works instead of blow up stuff or something.
Exactly. Yeah, there's just so much to that the Jedi has to be able to sense the crystal that is supposed to be in their lightsaber. There's this whole part to that. And I think the thing that makes this so interesting for me is that there is a bond between that kyber crystal and the person who's wielding it. And Richard, you were saying earlier that Sabine starts talking about how it's getting lighter and all of this stuff. I think that's purely... It has nothing really to do with her maybe being force sensitive or bonding with that kyber crystal. It has to do with Sabine letting her walls down and being open to the crystal and to the force. And so maybe in a way she is bonding with it, but not in a Jedi way.
Oh, no. I didn't take it that way. I just took it as she's becoming more attuned with this weapon. It's like holding anything like I'm going to go with a sports analogy. Help me out here, Sarah. If you're like a football.
Well,
I couldn't throw a football to save my life.
Wait.
Well, like if you have, like I played softball. When you start training with a new bat and using a new bat, a lot of times it can be really heavy. It can feel really awkward until you get used to the swing of the bat and the way that you're going to maneuver the bat. And then it becomes like a part of your arm.
Okay, yeah, that's
perfect.
See, that's why I was stumbling for a sports analogy. That's a great analogy, Teresa, with a softball bat.
Same as probably like a glove that you catch balls with.
Yeah.
It has to get soft and people oil the leather. And
Yep.
One thing I find interesting is, especially if you read the Ahsoka novel, Ahsoka, is drawn to these 2 kyber crystals from the brother, what is it?
77th brother.
Yeah, whichever one it is. And aren't his lightsabers red?
Yeah.
Right.
So what happened to those lightsabers is that he forced those kyber crystals into submission to work for him and essentially made them bleed. And when the kyber crystals bleed, they turn red. And that is what a Sith does to a kyber crystal. So when Ahsoka got the crystals from his spirally circle lightsaber, she essentially healed them and brought them back to their natural self. And they turned white for her.
Interesting.
Right.
Because Pablo confirmed for me on Twitter, because I asked him, I said, Pablo, do kyber crystals, are they already a color or do they become a color once they bond with their Jedi? And he said that they become a color when they bond with their Jedi. That is when their colors are chosen. So they are clear and colorless.
Interesting. So I wonder what that means for Ahsoka, since supposedly her lightsaber or her kyber crystals went back to clear.
Well, they're white.
They're white?
Well, her kyber crystals were white, so what it means is she's not a Sith or a Jedi, but she is force sensitive to the point that she can use and wield these crystals, and they are willing to allow themselves to be used by her. Okay. But she's not taking a side.
Okay.
She's neutral, so white flag.
All right. Well, what this reminds me of, the whole changing of the colors of the lightsaber is that in wand lore, there's this thing like if your wand defeats another wand, then the allegiance of that wand switches to you, which is partly why Voldemort could not, much like a Sith trying to wield a kyber crystal and turning it red, he couldn't defeat Harry Potter.
Correct. Do you know who the Elder Wand actually belonged to?
Wasn't it Harry? Because no. Well, it was not Harry. It was his nemesis, Potter. Right? It was Malfoy.
It was Draco.
It was Draco.
That's the funny thing because so Voldemort thought that Snape was actually the wielder of the wand, which is why he killed him. But it wasn't even him because Draco. What Voldemort didn't know was that Draco actually disarmed Dumbledore on the top of the tower.
Right.
So the
Dumbledore had the Elder Wand.
Yeah, so the wand belonged to Draco. And then when Harry disarmed Draco at Malfoy Manor, that is when the Elder Wand changed possession to him. But not only that, he got Draco's wand, he got Bellatrix's wand, he got all of them.
Remind me what books and or movies this all takes place.
This is all Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, the Deathly Hallows book.
1 or 2?
Well, the movies are broken up into 2.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. This happens in a conjunction of part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
But it is in 7.
It just blows my mind how much J.K. Rowling was just thinking about all of this. And we're going to have to put a major spoiler alert for Harry Potter at the beginning of this.
Yeah, my bad.
No. That's really fine.
Sorry, not sorry.
No, because we need to talk about, it's really like this wand lore all comes out in like the 7th book of Harry Potter. So
right, but Harry Potter, the universe is so dense.
Well, I would suggest they go to Pottermore because there's
seriously,
so much.
That's where I'm at right now. And we were talking about the Elder Wand being made of elder wood. It's the only wood that's ever made of elder wood. They don't make it's right here. Okay. The rarest wand wood of all and reputed to be deeply unlucky, the Elder Wand is trickier to master than any other. It contains powerful magic, but scorns to remain with any owner who is not the superior of his or her company. So they really don't make wands using elder. They use dogwood, cypress wood. My wand is actually one of the more rare ones too. It's larchwood. I don't really have a larchwood wand, but Pottermore says I do.
They're made out of wood, you keep saying, for each wand. Where does this wood come from? Is there you think I would know this at this point. Is there like a magical forest that they get the wood from?
That's where the wand makers get the wood from the trees, and in those trees are bowtruckles, which help protect the tree from people trying to steal its wood.
And is there a magical forest?
And you have to give bowtruckles food in order for them to allow you to take wood from the tree. What?
Is there a magical forest somewhere?
I don't know. And I'm never going to know because John Hurt, who's Ollivander, died, and I can never find out.
Oh. On a side note, my wand is made of laurel wood, and it has a unicorn hair core.
How long is it?
11 inches.
Mine's 10 inches. And mine has rigid flexibility.
I'm not even going there.
Okay, well, here is the $1,000 question, Teresa. Would you rather be a Jedi with a lightsaber or a wizard with a wand?
Wizard with a wand.
Why is that?
With lightsabers, it's really just a weapon to protect yourself. Like, if I was going to be in the Jedi Order, I know this because I have played Star Wars The Old Republic, but I would be a healer. I wouldn't really actually work with a lightsaber. I may not even have one.
Wow.
Because all of my connection to the Force would be through more naturalistic means and actually connecting with the Force using my hands, that kind of thing. So as a wizard, I would rather have a wand or I would rather be a wizard with a wand because I can do a lot of things that are not just battle magic.
Right, but everyday tasks like washing the dishes or cleaning the house.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. This changes everything.
I know. No, I think, honestly, I would rather have a wand than a lightsaber.
Yeah.
I'm going with the lightsaber.
Okay.
Well, and the other thing is that wizards don't actually have to have wands in order to do magic. They can do magic with their hands.
That's true.
Oh, have we seen this?
There are a few instances of it, yeah.
And actually, elves, house elves,
yes,
do magic
house
without
elves,
wands.
Goblins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I would choose a lightsaber just because I'd be afraid if I had a wand, I would just keep misusing it.
All right. Well, Teresa, before we wrap up, is there any other connection that we're missing that you can think of?
The only thing, and it doesn't necessarily connect to Harry Potter, but I find it interesting that the Darksaber, they chose to allow it to take the form of an actual sword blade, which I think is very interesting because that's a callback to Legends, to Dawn of the Jedi information and how the original lightsabers looked and were formed, which I was like, wow, that's interesting. But, you know, like, there's so many ties, I think, in the world of Star Wars to Harry Potter in lots of things, not just lightsabers and wands, but in so many other things. And I'm fully convinced that she used Star Wars as an inspiration.
Well, just the vastness of it. There's so many details and backstories with everything of Star Wars, and I'm sure that was an inspiration for J.K. Rowling.
Well, until the next Harry Potter movie comes out, Teresa, can you tell our listeners where they can find you on social media?
Oh, yeah. If you want to find me and talk Harry Potter, because clearly I have a problem, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at IceColdPenguin. And if there's any other Hufflepuffs out there, tweet at me. Let me know that you're in my house with me. Hufflepuff, loyal and true forever.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yay. I got to talk about Harry Potter. I feel good now.
That wraps up episode 155 of Skywalking Through Neverland. We want to give a big thanks to Jennifer Landa, Mark Newbold, Teresa Delgado,
as well as all of you Skywalkers for taking the time out of your busy schedules and listening.
And we want to thank everyone for also tuning in to some of the other RetroZap.com shows, which we are very, very proud to be associated with, like Brews and Blasters,
Beltway Banthas,
the Sandcrawler podcast that deals with collecting, and they just had a really fun video podcast where they watched the Kenner commercials and then did like a Mystery Science Theater around it.
Yes.
With commenting on it. It was really funny.
Oh, nice. We also have Techno Retro Dads. They're part of that team over there.
The Deucecast movie show.
And Talking Apes TV.
Which the new episode should be coming out the week after next.
Exciting.
Yeah.
All right, Skywalkers. So if you want to keep the conversation going every week, we are at Skywalking Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. And we also have our Facebook group. So if you want to just not only get in contact with us, but get to be friends with other Skywalkers, the Facebook group is a great way to do that. It is a closed group on Facebook. You just search for Skywalking Through Neverland and look for the groups. And then you can request to join, but that is your first step. Your second step is to find us elsewhere on social media, either a message to our Facebook page or somewhere on Twitter and say, hey, I requested to join the Facebook group. Please let me in. You have to do those two steps.
And it's a good way to make friends for Celebration Orlando, because a lot of people, you'll see their names, maybe some of their pictures, and you'll see them walking the floors at Celebration.
Yeah. And we're planning so many meetups.
Like instant friends when you get there. You'll already know a lot of people.
It's so cool. All right, so Skywalkers. We want to let you know where we are going to be in September 2017, September 17th through 22nd. We are doing a 5-night Skywalking Podcast Disney cruise to Baja, Mexico on the Disney Wonder. And that leaves from San Diego. So to get more info on that, please email our friend, podcaster, and cruise buddy, Randy Crane at cruise@storiesofthemagic.com and get a free, no-obligation quote. I know there was another couple that joined us this past week.
Yeah. So slots are filling up.
Yes, I think there's only about 10 slots left. So just please, if you want to join us, it's going to be a Halloween on the High Seas cruise. It's going to be amazing. And when you send that email to Randy, please mention Skywalking Through Neverland so he knows you want to be a part of our group. And then he can schedule everything together, and we're going to have lots of meetups and cool things. So we're excited.
And just get ready for a ton of Halloween fun.
Oh, amazing. All right, Skywalkers. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And
stay tuned for the bits that didn't make it quite into the show, and some bloopers, and maybe some things that shouldn't have been heard on the show.
What?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
All right. And then, always remember
to watch your language when you're podcasting.
Don't say while you're podcasting.
And then remember to
never land on Alderaan.
Some imagination, huh?
To our Skywalkers and Tweetwalkers, thanks for listening. Skywalking Through Neverland is created and produced by Richard and Sarah Woloski. Original music by Rob Dellinger. Creative consultant Mark Augushowitz. Technical advisor Peter Heitman. Facebook administrators Donald Wicks, Joey Pittman, and Norma Heitman.
Skywalking Through Neverland is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Any sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is property of Skywalking Through Neverland, all rights reserved. Sorry, had to be said. Lightsaber. One more time, just for the kicks and kicks of it.
Hold on, you don't mean
Shocker.
Okay,
Says
ready?
Geek Toddy.
Now, speaking of experts, we also invited Teresa Delgado from Fangirls Going Rogue to discuss the similarities between the Darksaber that we spoke of on our last... Okay, let me start that
From
again.
the top.
Meh. Okay.
You know what, speaking of which, should we roll the trailer? I hope we have a trailer.
I think so. Okay, well. Let's take a break from speaking with Jennifer Landa from ForceCenter Podcast and Mark Newbold from Radio 1138.
Yeah? And?
To do something that's not written.
All right, so since this Skywalker of the Week is on our Facebook, we're not going to say who it is.
Oh. Actually, I don't know if he's gone. Well, who knows?
Yeah.
People come in and out.
Yeah.
But, okay.
You'll just have to listen.
Yes.
All right, now, as we wrap up, you know what we just did? We just created a legion of competitors. But as I say, bring them on, bring it on. That's why we did this, just so the
You mean a
fans
legion
coming up,
of Star Wars family?
a family, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love competitors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see them as the younger brother or sister who keeps needling you until you just become better and better.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I meant.
All right, now let's discuss the similarities found between... Bleh.
One more time.
All right, now let's...
Without all right.
No, all right?
We're coming
Okay.
from a jingle to this.
Okay.
All right, intro take 2. We had such great feedback from our last episode where we went into. Yes, I am right now.
Mine is surprisingly swishy flexibility.
Ooh, that makes sense for you.
So now explain to us what you're talking about, Sarah.
Well, okay, so Laurelwood.
No, what side are we on? And
Oh,
can
I'm
we
sorry.
pick our own?
Yes. So this is Pottermore,
Okay.
Pottermore.com, and it's amazing. You can get sorted into a house. I am Gryffindor. And then you can choose your wand, and you take these quizzes to choose all this.
Right.
And then your Patronus, you can also figure out what your Patronus is. You take another quiz for that.
Yeah, for your Patronus. Yeah, I'm a Manx cat.
Oh.
So I'm a Hufflepuff, and my Patronus is a Manx cat, and my Ilvermorny house is Thunderbird, which is the U.S. wizarding school.
Oh, me too! Yay, Thunderbirds!
Woohoo! Greg actually just got sorted onto Pottermore, and he's a Slytherin, which I could have predicted. So, here's something else that's interesting.
Your husband is in Slithermore?
Slytherin.
Wow.
Yes. Slytherins aren't necessarily evil.
No.
Just they're very cunning individuals. They're, it's just Slytherins.
Manipulative.
Well, they're crafty.
Yes.
All right, I just took this test on Pottermore, and I'm a HR puffin stuff. What does that mean?
Ha ha.
I didn't think you would know what that meant.
I do know what HR Puff and stuff is. Thank you very much. I'm not that young.
Yeah, you are. Especially living in Los Angeles, I'd be turning everyone into bunnies.
That Dragon Heartstring core would be mad.
You're in my way, you're a bunny.
Yes.
You're texting during a movie, you're a bunny.
That would be awesome. You would have a bunch of little bunnies hopping around you at the end of a movie.
Oh.
All right, Teresa. Well, yay.
Hi.
I know.
Right. Expelliarmus.
Yeah, have fun with the divas.
Exasperate.
What?
Exhaustion.
Great.
I'm trying. Isn't that one of the?
He's trying to keep up with the times.
Isn't that one of the Harry Potter spells?
No.
Expelliarmus.
Expelliarmus is.
Yes.
There you go.
Not exasperate. That's different.
Exposition.
No.
Expecto patronum.
Yeah.
Exposition is the spell to explain what I'm talking about.
Reducto.
Repetitive. Bye.
I know, right? All right.
Well, that wraps up episode 154 of...
55.
Oh, who didn't make that note?
I don't know.
They're fired.
Uh-oh. Shit.
Do you need a timeout?
No.
Do you need a timeout?
Meh.
Hope no one heard that.
You go ahead.
I'm so ashamed right now.
I bet. Look, they don't like it.
No. Well, not Heather or Darthuba. They're very, very ashamed.
Oh, Logan Lanu.
Oops, did I hear? Good. I'm sorry. I don't know
My
what to
ears.
say.
Tangle's coming. Yay. Okay.
Not for you.
What?
Not for you anymore. Do you think about what you've done? Write a blog about that, would you?
No.
Yes. So you think about what?
I already wrote a blog.
Oh, write one again.
It's on Adventures by Daddy.
On your potty mouth.
When are you going to do that?
No, I want you to do that.
Okay.
Write it 50 times on a blackboard.
like
No copy and pasting either.